It's the low-key rally bar.
Yeah.
Mini for camera and.
I think.
Oh, it turned on with this, yeah.
It was a different.
One hurdle down.
And oh, it's recording.
Recording. All right, call the meeting to order. We have a forum, 3 online and 4 in the meeting. And we thank you, all the library staff who are here joining us tonight. I would typically start with an opportunity for public comment. I don't know if there's any public here to speak to us. Okay. Then first up is Johnny. Oh, yes.
Hi. I don't know if you want to speak back.
Is public speaking first?
Yes.
Yes, well, public purpose. Goodness. Please just give us your name and address. And
Hi.
thank you for coming. You are our first public speaker.
Hello, my name is James Meany. I'm a retired electronics and computer engineer. Vehicles. And I've got little tech projects that have interested me in maker spaces. And I noticed that the library district, in combination with the library foundation, the council, and city of Boulder, council, are all players in the management of the library, and I'm trying to understand the dynamic. So I understand that you all are in the midst of transition and maybe don't even know how that's all going to go, but if anybody can clue me in about how that process is going, or maybe I can learn something. So that's one thing curious about. The other thing is with respect to maker spaces, we have Tinkermill in Longmont, and we have Solid State Depot in Boulder, and we have Building 61 over here. And there's a question in my mind about should there be 2 competing maker spaces in Boulder, and what about that? New to that whole circumstance, and so I'm just kind of collecting information and curious what people's thoughts are about that, because I know that Solid State Depot has got a real estate problem and a cash flow problem, and I don't know if they're sustainable. And Tinkermill is very successful, and they've got full-time staff, and you guys have full-time staff. Solid State Depot has equipment that you don't have, and they've got people that can do educational kinds of things that you don't have, and so maybe there's some way to merge those things that are productive, so that you don't have 2 different maker spaces competing for funding. And so that's kind of what got me to, well, I guess I'll just show up to one of the organizations. So if anybody has thoughts or questions about that whole makerspace thing, or about how that process is going, that they can share with me. Not the process of the, I don't know who runs the library.
It's a fair question. So for the remainder of this calendar year, the library will continue to be run by the city of Boulder.
Because the district doesn't exist formally until 2024.
Well, we exist, but we don't have the infrastructure
Okay.
for that to operate. So we're busy building the infrastructure this year, and everybody is working on a timeline to transition the library, the employees, the makerspace by the end of this year. So it's city of Boulder. The foundation's role is funding. They have provided funding for library programs for some time. In the past, they don't have a role in managing the makerspace. So the makerspace will be managed by these folks, library staff, Next year, when we get into 2024, we actually have dedicated funding. I think people will be looking at the makerspace more. David, anything you want to add to that, or anything we can say about? There's actually a number of makerspaces in Boulder, just so you know. There's one on campus as well. The high school has one. Our makerspace has been collaborating with makerspaces around since it started. I don't know the details about that. There've been lots of partnerships. Yeah. Anything you add to that, David? Okay.
So in the end, 2024, the library district, board of directors is going to be the ultimate, the top. The ruling authority,
Yeah, the board of trustees, the director will be the ruling authority for
Okay.
makerspace.
and does that mean the tech city council, English language in charter? Charge that could be modified.
The language of the city charter, we voted to remove that.
Okay, so that's part of that.
So there's a transition this year to the library commission. So, you know, the city council. We will be managing the library.
So I didn't understand, library commission, I guess that's part of the management for the city council. So they're going away as well.
Yeah, they're advising.
They're advisory. But they will go away. Oh, okay. So the foundation, of course, is still going to be the influence that funding provides.
Yes, although I think the foundation is actually shifting their focus some, so to focus more on capital and less on programming. That's a transition they're going through, because the library now, for the first time, will actually have a dependable source of funding. The foundation has been basically filling gaps for 20 years, so they're looking at whether they can help the library in more effectively in the future by focusing on capital. Now, that might include from time to time makerspace if there's something.
That helps a lot.
I would say if you want more information, schedule time with David.
Yeah.
I didn't catch your full name, but
James Speed.
Yeah,
James Speed. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm David.
Hi, David.
he could probably talk for hours to you about it.
So he's the library director.
I am interested in this with the depot.
Are you going to be able to hang out a little bit after the meeting?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, but I'm here 5 days a week. You want to just pop in and see me? That would work for me.
Many city employees are not so available.
Yeah, my door's always open. You go right in, like other people do. So yeah. Welcome.
If you want for 3 hours, so.
Yeah.
you may-
Hang around.
I think 6 to 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to stay if you'd like. The staff is going to do a presentation on the library master plan. Adopted by the city in 2018. We're going to adopt it tonight. So it's a good time to get.
Well, I can. I want to mention, just ask you, I understand there's a plan for a building in Boulder. And the funding's a little bit up in the air, and so I don't know.
All of the funding has been secured for that building. We've broken ground. We're currently in, let's see, 4th month of construction, and we're estimating to complete the building in April 2024 with an opening date probably in May or June.
That'd be good money. So.
Yeah, it can go wild. It's really fun to see the progress and the big machines every day work on it. The address is 4500 13th Street, so it's right off of Broadway to the east, in between Violet and Rosewood.
Oh, is that? On Violet? Somebody has set up a construction.
That's ours.
Oh. Wonder who is that? There's also a city park.
There is, so just to the east of that is city-owned property that we are calling the Park on Violet. And they're just beginning to do some community engagement around concept design plans for that. But that will occur in a more slow pattern over the next 2 to 3 years.
But that building is literally going up in that space.
Yeah, they're separate parcels. So the library is on the north of the creek and the Park on Violet is south of the creek. And
So your building is going to be on the north side.
the north side of the creek and it directly abuts the Broadway corridor. So, yeah,
Well, that could be developed into a very nice area.
absolutely. It will be. Yeah.
Been planning for 30 years, so. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll close the public meeting, public comment portion, and turn it over to library staff. Thank you.
Actually, take it away.
First thing we do is introductions. And step over here so I can talk to the trustees that are joining us online tonight. So I have the pleasure to introduce several of my colleagues. Several of them have been instrumental in creating and implementing the master plan, but we have a couple of newer staff members that were invited to hear about the master plan. And that's Juan Jimenez. He's the literacy manager, so he'll be overseeing Boulder Reads and Reading Buddies and other literacy programs for the library. And Sophia Siraj is our volunteer services manager. So she took the position that Kate Kelch held, a year ago? You've been here a little while. It's January. January, really? So,
Yeah, wow.
she's doing a lot.
Yeah.
She's been here a long time. So they're here to listen tonight. I also would like to introduce you to Celia Seaton. She's the board specialist, and she'll be working more closely with you very soon. She's responsible for feeding you every week, coordinating behind the scenes when the deliveries don't come through and fumbling for pizza. And then I'd also like to introduce Adriana Boniakowski. She's our accounting specialist. And she is helping David and I kind of navigate the setup of all the finance system for the district. So we're really happy that she's here. And the library doesn't run without these folks. They really play a little role in us still being able to deliver services. So this is Kate Kelch. She's our community literacy and outreach manager. Jamie Kopke, next to Adriana, is our programs and events manager. Tim McClelland is our patron services manager. Antonia Galina is our deputy director of public services and facilities. And then Amy Shum is next to Sophia. She's our IT manager. And Laura Hankins she's our collection development and acquisitions manager. So the master plan was created in 2018 through a collaboration with the community. And we're pretty proud of the result of the master plan. We designed some really interactive and engaging opportunities for the community to give us their feedback on what they wanted their library to be. And if you want to read a little bit more about what those activities were, there's a page devoted to that in the master plan, but it was really a community effort. So we've got a lot to cover, so I hope that you'll be patient with us and hold your questions until the end. But the implementation of all the master plan goals is really a collaborative effort of all of the staff. Not just those of us that are here, but everybody plays a role in delivering those services and meeting those goals. And so tonight, Tim, Laura, and Jamie will be talking about the goals around programs and services. Amy and Antonia will be talking about the goals around facilities and technology. And Kate and a few others will talk to you about the goals around community building and partnerships. And then Antonia will finish up with the goals around organizational readiness. So as you recall, in the ballot, there was a list of things that the district would like to do for the community, the library would like to do for the community. And those ballot items were pulled from the master plan goals that we have yet to achieve. So the master plan is a 10-year plan. It has a 10-year vision, which is that BPL serves as a centerpiece of the community, a destination for human connection, lifelong learning, civic engagement,
and creative exploration. There on page 37 of the master plan, there's a list of guiding principles, and we really follow those and align our work in implementation of the goals with these guiding principles, and they are provide inclusive access, promote all forms of literacy, foster personal development and self-sufficiency, support and sustain an inspired, engaged, and informed community, form strong partnerships and leverage community resources, reach out and respond to our diverse community, and maintain high-quality programs and services. And so when you're looking at the plan, you'll notice that the goals are arranged under those 4 themes that these folks will be talking to you about. And then within the goals are objectives to achieve those goals. And those are organized under 3 different levels, and these are related to the city's funding priorities. So the first one, and we, the staff and the library commission at the time thought that we would like to give a little more definition to these funding levels than the city had. So we created our own, and they are maintain service levels, which equates to the city's funding level of fiscally constrained. So that's really just a status quo with your budget. You're doing what you can with your budget. You're not expanding services. You're just kind of holding steady. The second level is address community demand, and the city defines that as the action plan goals. These are we interpreted the action plan to be those goals that maybe we didn't achieve in former master plans, or things that we heard the community say they wanted that we weren't already doing, that would slightly enhance the quality of programs we're already offering. And then the last one, or the third one, is service expansion. And that's what the city calls their vision plan goals. And those are somewhat pie in the sky, if you're thinking about it from the viewpoint of the city, but to us, that really means those things that would be new and maybe not planned for in the past. So things like bringing a Gun Barrel Branch library online is a vision plan goal, and we fully intend to achieve the vision plan. We don't consider them pie in the sky, and I'm really excited to say that, you know, with the voters passing the funding for the district, it's going to enable us to really achieve all of these goals. So we think we're on track to complete them probably between 2026 and 2028. So I'm going to turn it over now to Tim, Laura, and Jamie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tim McClellan. I'm the Patron Services Manager here at the main library, and I'm here representing the Public Services Division where I work with Antonia. The Public Services Division encompasses staff, mostly frontline staff and managers here at the main library, at the Reynolds branch, the Meadow branch, and the Novo Corner Library. And our work mostly revolves around frontline customer service, so interacting with people as they come into the library. So customer service, circulation, materials handling, reference, readers advisory, computer assistance, story time, and branch programming. I'm here to talk about some of the accomplishments for programs and services, mostly services, and then Laura will talk about the accomplishments related to the collection goals, and then Jamie will talk about goals related to programming. So one of the first things that we came up with, the stated commitment for this programs and services section is to, again, maintain high quality programs and services, as Jim mentioned, but also to prioritize library resources to offer programs, collections, and services that are vital in a 21st century knowledge economy, to support libraries and to support families in childhood development and respond to evolving community needs. So one of the first barriers that we ran up against whenever we were doing the engagement process and the master plans, we heard from individuals in the community who felt like there were obstacles to using the library. So perhaps they they dropped a book in the bathtub 8 years ago, or their dog ate a book, or they were just fearful of the fines that their kids might rack up. Those are just barriers to being able to use the great services at the library. Obviously, that's our intention, is to bring in as many people as possible to be inclusive and welcoming for those people. But we recognize that that barrier was getting in the way. So we set about looking for ways to remove those obstacles to use. And one way that we found was to eliminate the daily overdue fines that accrue on people's accounts and restrict access. So at the time, daily overdue fines accrued at the rate of 20 cents to $1 a day, which could be pretty prohibitive for people to pay to be able to use the library. So we set about to remove those fines and then also waive existing fines on accounts. So we got city council's approval to do that, and they increased our operating budget by $85,000, which covered the revenue that we were due to lose out on those. So it was a wash in that way, but it was definitely a gain, a positive for our customer service and creating a more welcoming environment for people. So we waived fines on about 45,000 accounts. So that's about a third of our cardholders had some form of fine on their account. So it's pretty impactful in that way. It was also impactful for staff, because instead of literally having to nickel and dime people as they were checking people out, they could focus on more impactful services, so they could help people work on their resume, apply for a job, download an ebook, all those sorts of things. So staff were much happier with and engaged in that work in that way. It was really successful. We obviously promoted, kind of welcome people back to the library. That we implemented that in 2019, and it was been very successful. Around the same time, we also implemented an automatic renewal system, which kind of looked at removing barriers to access to the collection. So previously, most materials checked out for 3 weeks, but then you had to either bring it back or talk to the librarian or go online to renew it. But we said, hey, if nobody's waiting for those things, why do we have to have those items back? So we set up this process that allows people to keep items for up to 12 weeks, as long as no one's waiting for it. And again, it was just a simple change, but it gave people additional access to the collection. It was really easy. One of the stated goals in the master plan was to increase our library materials hold process. At the time, we had just a 10-item hold limit, which is pretty low. And we often heard from people that other libraries had much higher limits on that. So that was something that staff were kind of eager to change. So we bumped that number up in early 2020 to 25 items. COVID obviously forced us to restrict access in some ways. So we temporarily went back to 5 holds, a 5-hold limit. But in 2021, we were able to hire an additional library materials handler to take on that extra work. And then we could expand back to 25 holds, which is where we're currently at. And that's working really well. Obviously, COVID in many ways kind of put a pause on many of our master plan goals and expanding services or even maintaining levels. But staff quickly kind of pivoted to figure out ways for keeping the library open when our doors are physically shut. So that was a new challenge for us, but staff quickly pivoted to that. Within 2 weeks of being closed, we had online story times being posted to YouTube. We recorded stories through a program called Dial-A-Story, so people could call the library and listen to stories if they didn't have access to technology online to engage families, which was awesome. And then we also set up a program to create digital library cards. So typically you have to come into the library to set up a library card, but with the library closed, we wanted to have some way to expand access for people. So people could sign up online for a card, and that gave them immediate access to Overdrive, Libby, Hoopla, and Canopy during that time, which use just kind of skyrocketed, not surprisingly during that time, and it continues to be very high today.
You still get a card online?
A temporary one.
Okay.
Yeah. Once it was safe for staff to return to the building, we launched a carry-out hold service. Obviously, getting physical materials in people's hands was our next biggest priority. So we set about creating that program. That involved staff at all levels. So that wasn't just public services staff, that was library staff all over, certainly pitched in to help out with that. We set up a program that people could come in, pick up their hold. It was limited to 5 at a time until we could just meet the demand. That took a couple months to fully meet that demand. You can imagine after being closed a couple months how many holds we had ready. But once we had that done, we again kind of looked for ways to expand services to get it back to some semblance of normal. I wanted to highlight 2 other services that we added around that time. One you're probably familiar with, which is our homebound delivery service, which is typically run by volunteers. It's been a very successful program for a long time. But volunteers weren't allowed in the library. So we paired staff with people in the community who weren't able to make it to the library. So they couldn't come in to ordinarily pick up their books through carryout. So they were paired, we paired about 10 people with each staff person. They drove city vehicles around and essentially did carryout service delivery. So super impactful for those people who couldn't make it out to the library. The other program that we added, we called it Dial a Senior. And that was really just a program to connect with older adults in Boulder. And this was for staff who were mostly working at home and needed tasks. So they would call up individuals and make sure that they knew what services were available at the library. We obviously did our best to promote those through our website and the newsletter and social media. But as you can imagine, things were constantly changing and people are having a hard time keeping up with what you could do at the library this week. So we would call up people, connect with them, make sure they knew what they could do with the library, make sure they knew about our digital resources, how they could check those items out. And both of those services were just incredibly impactful. We heard from so many people post-pandemic who would come in and say, thank you. You were one of my only lifelines. I didn't have anybody to talk to except in my household. And the library just randomly called one day and made my day. Or I was able to get the books and media that I needed to stay sane during that time. So super impactful programs, and it was awesome to hear about the impact that they had. One of the more recent services that we've added post-pandemic is a partnership with BVSD called our Student One program. And that matches students who go to BVSD schools within the city limits are automatically set up with a library card using their student ID number. So that again removes another barrier that we've often heard that parents have a hard time getting their kids into the library to sign up for a card. So this automatically gives them access. We just completed our third year of our Student One program. The first 2 years, they just had access to some of our digital resources to do projects, research through our databases and such, but we expanded it this past school year to also include checkouts. So kids could check out 5 items using their student ID numbers. It was pretty successful. We have about 19,000 kids in the program and they checked out around 1,000 materials. So we certainly expect that it'll grow as more librarians and teachers promote it throughout BVSD, but we're excited for that partnership and some of the barriers that it has eliminated. One of the goals that we haven't yet been able to fully achieve is to provide adequate resources for programming in the face of growing demand and to provide uniform levels of service at the main library and at the branches. But we have made some progress since the budget cuts around COVID. So we've hired 2 bilingual library coordinators here, one position here at the main library and one up at the Novo Corner Library. Those staff have been able to really expand our bilingual offerings for story time and programming and outreach, which is one of the main demographics that we wanted to reach with the master plan. Their work has been really impactful and well received by the community. And then at both of the big branch libraries, Meadows and Reynolds, we've been able to add a branch librarian, which not only supports them with their operations, so they're not, when they're short staffed, they don't have to close, they can remain open, which is really important for that goal. But then they've also been able to expand their branch programming, which is something that's always in demand at those popular branches. Obviously, we still have work to do with this goal. Reynolds is still closed on Mondays. Novo is currently closed on Thursdays and Fridays, and we expect that will open up once new Novo opens up next year. And then the Carnegie Library for local history is only open by appointment. So we expect to have staffing requests in the budget for 2024 and 2025 to expand those so we can reopen those libraries on a more regular basis. So those are some of the highlights for services, and I'll pass it over to Laura to talk about collections goals.
All right, my name is. My name is Laura Hankins and I'm the collection development manager, collection and acquisitions manager. It's 2 separate work groups here at the library. But the 2 work groups together bring in all of the physical books and process the physical books with stickers, barcodes, that sort of thing. And then the computer cataloging as well for the physical materials that come in. And we also buy all the electronic materials. So the Libby collection with all of its super long holds lists, we do that. Canopy, Hoopla, and all of the other informational databases that are targeted at research and, informational requests from the public. Let's see what else. We do all the collection measuring. So the statistical reports and the performance reports of various parts of the collection that comes out of our department as well. And we are responsible for the director's report, which you might be familiar with. Let's see. So master plan goals, we were fortunate to be wrapped up tightly with some of the things that the public services department was doing in regards to master plan goals, but also in regards to some of the COVID pivots that we had to do, setting up the online library cards and what have you. Our primary focus in the collection development department has been looking at services and resources that work for older adults, as well as some of the other underserved demographics of the Spanish-speaking population. So we look closely to be sure that any of the resources we're buying now, especially electronic online, that they either have a Spanish platform or have resources in Spanish as well. It's something that we're all looking at pretty closely. The acquisition budget, which right now is city funded, comes through our department. That's what purchases all of these things. Let's see, when the holds grew during the pandemic on some of our electronic collections, we had to pivot pretty quickly to switch some of our physical purchasing money to electronic. The holds lists were shockingly huge, and they are still pretty big. The way that the electronic collections work, especially through one of the, well, both of the vendors are a little different, but through one of the vendors is we, on a yearly basis, almost have to rebuy some things that you would think would never expire, like Pride and Prejudice or something the kids are, the House on Mango Street, you know, it's on every reading list and it'll expire every single year. So every year we're rebuying classics that we need to have in the collection, but it fights for money for new books and such. So it's a tricky balance sometimes. During the pandemic, when we were still not even allowed in the buildings, we were able to switch our Overdrive Libby platform to sign up with your telephone number and your general and your zip code, so that we would get a bill from the Overdrive company for anybody who signed up. It was within our service area, and we turned it on. We're like, oh, heck yeah, let's do it. And we got quite a few. I'm not sure what the final numbers ended up being because we are in a borrowing consortium for our Front Range downloadable stuff. We share with 6 other libraries in the area, so our numbers were all grouped together. But what else? When the research first started coming out in regards to children's learning losses and some of those things, we were able to buy some new formats as well as a homework help database that has live tutoring online. It's called Brain Fuse. It works for children and adults, so tell everybody that you know that it's out there. They'll even critique your resume if you're job hunting. So it's a pretty valuable service. We added phonics kits because now phonics are back in the mainstream for kids and developing, you know, solid reading skills. And we also bought some large print in the kids format because of the learning losses and processing disorders, and some of the dyslexic kids were falling even far further behind. But now the research is showing that they can handle the same level of book if it's in large print. So that's a pretty interesting development. Only happened about 6 months ago or so we started buying it. So that was kind of not a good thing that came out of the pandemic, but it you know, flashed a light on some things that had likely been there for a long time. In collection development and acquisitions, we don't do many programs, but we do programs that promote the resources that we buy. So what that means is we buy all the books and all the media and all the online materials. And so we have classes for staff when they come on board, or when Tim has some interests in providing a next level of understanding of databases and some of the things that we have that help us interact with the public. So just today, there was a reader's advisory class for some of our new staff so that they understand how to use these resources and teach the community how to use them too. They all are community facing, but the better staff know how to use them, you know, the easier it is for them to recommend books to the public. So we do a program called Tech Drop-In, which is just what it sounds. Bring whatever's stumping you and come to twice weekly here at Maine. We expanded it to Meadows. That finally got up and running last year. And even, I just looked at the statistics, this year alone, that program has helped 90 people at Meadows Branch alone. We have Spanish-speaking volunteers and English-speaking volunteers. They were very willing to work online during the pandemic, and we were grateful, because how do you help somebody who's struggling learn to use Zoom? It was interesting, but we got some really nice comment cards from that period as well. Let's see, we partner with the Age Well Center, which is the City of Boulder's older adult services. We teach a class twice a year for the last 4 years or so, before the pandemic even. And we continued it during the pandemic, and it's teaching basic awareness of online library resources, because if you don't know how to use them, it's difficult, you know, it's cumbersome in the beginning. So we do that. We also have the internal classes, but most of the things that we do face out to help the older community use some of the resources. You know, we buy electronic access to things, but you have to have electronic skills to access them. So we think it's a pretty important program service to provide. It's kind of a little bit of both, program or service. Some of the fun things that we've done as a cooperative library are a recommended read program we do online, which you should check into because it's really fabulous. And staff from every location sign on to help you find your next great read based on what you liked before. So keep that in mind. Thursdays 1 to 3 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I think Facebook and Instagram. We did a serious look at all of our physical collections and online collections during the COVID pandemic. We were offered the ability to do a diversity audit on all of our print holdings, as well as our electronic holdings in Overdrive. And we did the first round of that, and we were pleasantly surprised at how well we did in certain areas. There was some room to make up some distance, and we've done some of that. We expect to do a follow-up, hopefully next year. But we've put an EDI focus on the website book lists that we curate, which are on the catalog page based around topics of interest. And I can't even think of what's up there now, but we always have new books, and then there's usually a targeted focus. Our internal displays in the library now fall under this as well, so that we make sure that the displays that are run out of Tim's department we look at them with a diversity lens, just to be sure that we are covering all points of view and have something for everybody. You know, you can't be it if you can't see it. So we take it very seriously and try to make sure that we're representing everybody the best that we can with public money. You know, this is public money that we spend. So that's where we are with that. Last thing, the Library of Things. It was a master plan goal. And we don't have too many things that in the library that qualify as things that we can lend to the public, but we do, we got cultural passes going during the pandemic, which provide families opportunities for free access to cultural organizations, because sometimes it would be very expensive to take, you and 2 kids to some of these things. We only have 5 participants at this point, but I hope to grow it depending on funding in the future. The first few years I funded it through the Colorado State Grant for Libraries, which we actually apply for each year. We run 2 grants out of this department. One is the State Library of Colorado and the Colorado Department of Education grant. And we bought cultural passes with it for a couple years. We are funding Wi-Fi hotspots data plans with it after this month, I think. And then we also do a book a bike partnership with the Boulder B-Cycle to try to allow families or people who are unfamiliar with the bikes or don't want to pay $7 to rent a bike for a few hours to give it a try, see how it is, and they provide some micro mobility options, in the city. And we plan to expand it if they're still willing up to New Novo, because they have a rack not too far, but I think it would be a nice dovetail if it was near the library. Let's see. Oh, we just got awarded another grant. It's the ACP grant, American Connectivity Project. It's through the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and partnered with AT&T and the Public Library Association. It's a relatively small grant, but it's going to allow us to teach the community classes in English and Spanish about the connectivity program that has been functioning for a couple of years that low-income families likely don't know about. Their numbers are pretty low, so they've given a whole bunch of money to government entities and I don't know if it was pseudo-government entities, something like that, to help promote this to the communities that they serve. That'll happen this year, probably third quarter, because we have to spend it this year. We'll be able to raffle off devices, so super cool. Left to accomplish? Well, the holds list on the electronic catalog is tragic. Some of them are very bad. It's very difficult. And if you know anything about the electronic collection, you'll understand how hard it is to keep the holds lists from rising. The purchasing platforms have 5 different ways to purchase these books. One way, you buy the copy, you own it forever, about $120 a book. The publishers are aging this out because they don't want us to own the book forever. So now we are forced into, they expire every year, 12 months or 24 months, or the first of 12 or 24 circs. So if 24 people borrow them, it's done in week 3. If, or they expire at the end of the year. Think Pride and Prejudice or some of those books on those reading lists, we buy them every year. And one year they might only get 8 circs. It expires no matter what. So it's very tough to keep up with the demand of the backlist and new materials. So those are some of our big goals, is to target some of the, if we can get an increase in the acquisitions budget to bringing some of these things down. And we have to rebuild both of the work groups that I supervise, as we've been a bit short-staffed since the COVID cuts. And so we're looking forward to reintegrating these departments. And then new Novo, super exciting. We're almost actually going to buy the collection soon. So that's pretty exciting. And then on to Gun Barrel, or at least that's our hope. All right, short story long. And next up, Jamie Kopke.
Yeah, I'm Jamie. I'm the Programs and Events Manager, and the Programs and Events team here at the library provides the strategic planning for library programs and provides support across the system to all the branches for program planning, as well as producing some of the larger core flagship programs. So things like Summer Discovery, Winter Reading, One Book, One Boulder, and the Jaipur Literature Festival. But overall program delivery across the system is decentralized. So day-to-day programming, we have over 40 staff across many work groups, like Tim Lar just said, who contribute to program planning and delivery. The programs and events team also manages several spaces within the library. So those include Canyon Theater, the gardens, the exhibition spaces, Building 61, and our future Novo Makerspace, as well as all the related programming that happens for those areas. So in terms of master plan goals that we've been working on that are complete or are ongoing, for the goal of civil and civic dialogue and creating a place that can be a forum for ideas. We did a pilot for our Civic Soup program a couple of years ago with what is now the Community Engagement Department for the city. We also have a lot of ongoing partnerships that we rely on with local organizations who can help supplement this area for us, so we don't have to produce everything ourselves, to leverage access of people like CU History Department, Conference on World Affairs. We've done a lot of hosting and partnering with them. We launched and are continuing our One Book, One Boulder program, which has a basis in picking topics that are relevant to the local community. And then our exhibition program is also foundationally based on picking art exhibitions that will illuminate a topic for the local community as well. And the next master plan goal was around activating outdoor spaces. So we have the edible learning garden here at Maine. We have a native plant and pollinator garden that we renovated here at Maine. And we also have a learning garden at the George Reynolds branch. The master plan also calls out climate resiliency and sustainability goals, which are also part of the city's framework. And to reach those goals, we have a whole suite of seed to table programming. So that includes things like our gardening, seed saving, seed library, the beehives, which aren't there right now, bee programming, and cooking programs. We also have done a number of programs tangentially related with some of our larger flagship programs. So in 2021, One Book, One Boulder was based on the topic of the climate crisis. We also started a climate activist in residence program through our exhibitions in the Canyon Gallery. We also have a number of maker and STEAM programs. So all locations offer a variety of STEAM programming for children. And our makerspace staff serve as content experts on all the STEAM principles for staff across the system. And all of their offerings are obviously STEAM focused as well. One other thing I wanted to call out that the master plan calls for several times throughout it is being responsive to community interests and needs. So in addition to doing select surveys, especially as we launch a new program like One Book, One Boulder, we did pretty extensive surveying and focus groups to understand that program a little better. We also have been trying to...
The library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
Buenas noches. La biblioteca se cerrará en 15 minutos. Por favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
We're going to be done.
You got 5 minutes. Yeah.
So in addition to those ongoing things that we've already been doing, we've been really trying to expand staff readiness in terms of working on evaluation. So We recently did a 5-part series with branch managers, programs and event staff, and branch librarians to learn more about evaluation. And moving forward, we are looking to incorporate and create an annual evaluation plan as part of our annual work plan process. So still to come for us for master plan goals. One is around activating the Canyon Theater. Currently, we are open to rentals, community sponsorships, and city and library uses based on the availability of the one FTE staff we have who runs that space. Also, in the to come is expanding maker offerings, which is also a ballot initiative as well as a master plan goal. So Building 61 is still currently down 1 FTE from those pandemic related budget cuts. And our 2024 budget will propose restoring that funding in addition to hiring some more staff and the Novo space, which will be great, which will allow us to realize more of the maker related goals that are in the master plan. Now I'm passing to Amy and Antonia.
Thanks, Jamie. My name is Amy Shum. I'm the IT manager here at the library in my 11th year here. So many of us have been here a bit. I currently manage the e-services work group, which provides IT support specific to library technology and primarily to our library staff. But we do work closely with city IT as they do still support our enterprise hardware and software. My team consists of myself and 2 other full-time staffers. I have 1 senior applications administrator and 1 level 1 applications administrator. Our work group is going to change drastically after we become a library district. We'll no longer be referred to as e-services, but we will be referred to as the Innovation and Technology Department. And we're going to be taking over managing everything related to IT, including all the enterprise support currently provided by the city. This means we'll be expanding the service we provide to staff, and we'll need to build out our new infrastructure, and we'll need more staffing to maintain this service. Today, I am going to walk you through the goals set out in the master plan that start on page 48 for facilities and technology. And on this page, it says that our commitment is providing relevant technology, safe and welcoming facilities, and fluid spaces that are adaptable to the community's changing literacy needs. So many of the technology goals within the master plan centered around improving mobile technology, which turned out to be very critical during the pandemic. I know Tim had mentioned that things slowed down for public services, but they kind of fast forwarded for our IT department. So we had to pivot quickly during the pandemic and provide services for staff as well as for patrons. To give you an example of that, prior to the pandemic, most of our staff were using desktop computers and they worked primarily from their own office spaces within our buildings. Post-pandemic, we've replaced almost all of our staff's desktop PCs with laptops. We've migrated to Microsoft Teams for voice calls and virtual meetings, and we've converted many of our staff workspaces to hybrid workspaces. On the patron side, prior to the pandemic, we had a lot of desktop PCs for patrons to use while they were in our facilities. Post-pandemic, we've reduced the number of desktop PCs and have replaced them with laptops that can be used all over our facilities here at the main library. We also ramped up our hotspot checkout program. Laura mentioned our hotspots earlier. We started with 12 hotspots that we were testing back in 2019, and now we're up to 47 hotspots that we check out to our community, and they all have unlimited data. And we have figured out a way to get them back. They would check out and never return, but we have finally figured out a way to get those back. So that's been a hugely successful program. It's also worth noting that the main library has been voted best Wi-Fi for remote workers from the Boulder Weekly for several years in a row now. So we like to put a feather in our cap for that. With the support of the Library Foundation, we were able to partner with Boulder Valley School District, the city's community connectors, human services.
The library will be closing in 10 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
La biblioteca se cerrará en 10 minutos. Por favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
Yeah, I'll hopefully be done for the next one. So with the support of our Library Foundation, we were able to partner with the Boulder Valley School District, our city's community connectors, and Human Services Department and Twitter. Twitter provided free hotspots and unlimited data for our underserved communities at the beginning of our pandemic. So in 2020, we handed out some devices. We gave Boulder Valley School District 100 hotspots, and they strategically handed those out to families that were not able to build up the infrastructure for somebody like Xfinity to come in and give them internet access. We worked with the city's community connectors and older adult services to distribute hotspots, Chromebooks, and iPads to our seniors in the community. As Tim had mentioned, they were very isolated and didn't really have a way to communicate with friends and family. Twitter did provide that tech support for the devices for the first year. So looking at this program in numbers, overall in 2020 and 2021, we gave away 450 hotspots, 280 Chromebooks, and 78 iPads. And that came to a total of $181,000. $81,000 came from our library foundation, and $100,000 came from a city awarded CARES grant that we received. Funny enough, we are still finding grant money to support many seniors that are still using those Chromebooks and hotspots today. Another goal that we had was to create a technology strategic plan, and I'm happy to report that that was completed in 2020. And we have been using that plan to help guide our work group on strategically planning for technology needs. Some of the goals that are outlined in that plan, which we've started working on, but it will continue into 2024 and beyond, is accessibility. So online accessibility and within our buildings, and shifting from a reactive to a proactive technology posture. We're a staff of 3, and we don't have a lot of time to be proactive in the way that we respond. So we're hoping with some additional staffing in 2024, we'll be able to be more proactive rather than reactive. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about facilities, safety and security. I'm going to talk briefly, and then I'll pass it off to Antonia to finish this one out. But as part of the facilities safety and security goal, we launched a new training program for staff on responding to emergency situations like fire, flood, and active harmful events. There's a small committee of us that completely revamped the way that staff are trained on these types of security and safety events that happen at the library. We also started providing employees with building tours that highlight fire extinguishers, fire poles, emergency exits, and unfortunately where to hide in the event of an active harmful event. We also improved our security camera coverage so that we could more closely monitor spaces that are not activated by library activity. And we improved our handheld radios for a wider range, which was desperately needed in this building because of the size and the shape of this building. We're able to go to a digital radio, which helps staff be able to communicate with our security company. So I will pass it to Antonia to finish that one out.
My name is Antonia Gauna. I'm the Deputy Director for Public Services and Facilities. And what that means is I oversee the Public Services Division, which Tim so adeptly explained in his piece, which encompasses 65 FTE that the library has, including temporary and substitute workers. I don't know, something like, I think our total budget for this division is just over $10 million. And so overseeing that division of programs and services at all 4 of our circulating branch library locations. And I also oversee the majority of facility related projects, capital improvement projects, remodels, refreshes, furniture projects, project manager for the new North Boulder Library under construction currently. And once we transition to a library district, I will be overseeing our facilities department and fleet. So that will be a new one and a fairly significant change for our division. I'll circle back a little bit to touch on the facilities highlight of accomplishments that Amy included. To include one of the most obvious ones from a patron perspective was that we increased what was a 0 budget.
The library will be closing in 5 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
For cleaning and library furniture.
La biblioteca se cerrará en 5 minutos.
Always forget about
Por
that.
favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
To over $130,000, which has been a significant improvement on the cleanliness of our library facilities and the usefulness of our public spaces. And I think through the last 3 years, we've been able to turn over the majority of our public furniture at all of our library locations, which is huge, both on aesthetics and how welcoming and approachable our libraries appear and function for our patrons. That includes prioritizing replacing a large portion of furniture. Like I said, nearly all of our library locations, routine upholstery and carpet cleaning. New furniture selections have focused on high quality, non-porous and cleanable surfaces with high use industrial materials, which we, in case you didn't know, threw away over $100,000 worth of furniture after our concerns of contamination, and they were ready for replacement anyway, but we have focused that replacement on materials that can be easily cleaned and not have to be discarded. We also refreshed and reconfigured both of our Meadows and Reynolds Branch library locations, and if you haven't seen those already, please do go check them out because they're beautiful and stunning and far more functional for our communities, and we've received a number of accolades for those spaces. We also completely overhauled and remodeled the public library restrooms here at the main library to include really nationally leading gender neutral restrooms, which are not only incredibly functional, inclusive, and easy to clean, but we're kind of, I think, a paradigm for inclusivity in public institutions. And we're unfortunately in a period of time in which we've had to restrict access to those restrooms. We do hope to reimagine them in the future to go back to what they were when we first opened them in March of 2020. So what we're doing now is also pretty significant. We hired a reliable security company, and I can't stress the importance of this enough. This has changed the culture, perception, and day-to-day functionality of our main library location tremendously. The ability to have a contractor that we can not only rely on for coverage, for expertise, for approach, for alignment with our service model and our values is incredibly important. There's also an advantage to hiring a security company versus hiring this function in-house because we have complete coverage without having to hire a substitute full. They have training built into their organization that we don't have to provide the oversight and ongoing training administration for those contractors. It's really become a partner that we can rely on for our staff to feel safe and secure in their workplace, as well as provide open access and safe services to our community. We deploy the security coverage at our branch libraries as well. And right now it's limited coverage, but it also has done a tremendous service in helping those staff members to feel secure and prepared for handling certain situations and incidences in their workplace. We have, I think now for the second year in a row, subscribed to an online staff training called Homelessness Academy for Librarians. And it's inclusive training with everything from de-escalation techniques to handling those experiencing mental illness or homelessness. And they have prepared staff for handling the types of changes and influx in clientele that we've seen, particularly in the civic area in the last handful of years. We've partnered with the Boulder PD to increase police walkthroughs throughout our space and connections and contacts with them as a partner in managing our public spaces. We have significant coordination with the city regarding employee processes and input for resources, ongoing training, and particularly things that are in the works regarding revising city code to better enable our staff to restrict access to people who violate library rules of conduct and keep them out of our spaces for longer periods of time.
Attention, the library is now closed. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Atención, la biblioteca está cerrada. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy y esperamos verlos nuevamente.
So that work is all very much still in process, and we hope to continue that as we transition to the library district by building this partnership now and by like having an active role in voicing our expectations for safety and security in our workplaces moving forward. We as a library leadership have implemented significant process improvements, including coverage and manager on duties for our staff members working on site in order, again, for frontline staff specifically to feel safe and secure in their workplace. The other major ongoing effort currently is opening a full service branch library in North Boulder with hours that are consistent with other branch facilities that will also include a makerspace. Our focus for this project has been significant amount of community involvement and also focusing on sustainable and environmentally friendly building methods as well as architecture so that this building can really serve as a pedagogical model for sustainable construction moving forward. So what's left to accomplish in our facilities and technology goal? We have a lot to do around accessibility, both online and in brick and mortar buildings. Work has begun on that, but we will continue into 2024. One of the largest lifts is going to be our facilities assessment with a focus on accessibility and sustainability. Again, the Carnegie's unique facility needs will be evaluated during that facilities plan work the district is planning for next year. And again, bringing our facilities management in-house will be a significant transition. Regardless of whether or not we own or lease our buildings, there's a good amount of oversight and management that we're going to have to take over, which will be new to our organization. Scouting out purchasing or leasing a space in Gun Barrel to open a new Gun Barrel library will also be a significant lift. And I believe, Amy, you may have mentioned this, but increasing the personnel budget to provide both technology and support to these increased functionalities as we become a library district will also be significant. I think that wraps up technologies and facilities. So I'm going to hand it over to Amy, or sorry, Kate.
I'm gonna invite you to stand up and stretch for a minute because that too. I know you've been hearing a lot and just have a sense you have to move around.
Good job.
I'm gonna stand here. Feel more comfortable. Hard to have people right at your back. I'm Kate Kels. I'm the manager of our literacy and outreach programs, and that includes adult literacy programs and our Reading Buddies programs, which has been K through third grade. It also includes all of our outreach activities, going out into the community and bringing our library services and programs out into the community and engaging diverse, culturally and linguistically diverse communities. And then our volunteer services. Providing ways for the community to engage with part of delivering these programs. So I'm just going to talk about that this is a key strategic part of our vision about really making sure that the full of the community is aware of what's available to them, what they're paying for, what they're contributing, and that they have access to it. And so a lot of it is around reaching communities that haven't necessarily been part of the library or fully part of it, that we hope that could fully be involved. And typically they've been more underserved community or under-resourced communities. So one of the key goals was expanding outreach to underserved communities in the master plan. And that's been part of the plan before that, and maybe even the plan before that. And we did a lot during this period before COVID and during COVID, and we had really active staff that were out at hundreds of events, providing programs in the community, partnering with dozens of organizations, and at different festivals, fairs, things like that, being present. During COVID, we had to pivot, and a lot of that was like providing kits and creating like craft kits and STEM kits and reading things that people could do at home and getting that out either to community partners or making it available, letting people know via the communications mechanisms we had at the library that they could come and pick those up. We also got thousands of books out into the hands of people during COVID, not just library books, but we also run the donation area for the library.
So we got through partnerships with BVSD and their family area there, family partnerships, and with the senior centers. And through some of our other partners through grants, we just got all those donations out, as well as other books that we were able to give away into the community and get them in people's homes, which I think was a big contribution. For outreach right now, we don't have any designated staff members. So the big thing will really be moving forward is getting staff and really building systems and structures that allow more staff to participate in being in the community and really use their talent of engaging the community versus doing all the logistical part and coordination and all that. So building some of those systems. The area literacy and outreach is connected because the literacy area is often reaching a number of those underserved communities to people that can't fully yet participate in this community because they're still building their English skills or still building their Spanish skills or even their home language skills. And so a big part of our work has been working with adult literacy, one-on-one tutors. We have an online career high school program. We've piloted a Spanish equivalency high school program. And those programs were able to continue during COVID online, and also a English conversations program where every day of the week, people can participate in a dialogue in English and practice their English with other people practicing their English and make connections and community, which is also an important part of what we're doing. The Reading Buddies program is under this area too, and that's gone on for over 30 some years. And it is for kindergarten through third and typically matched up with a CU student, and they work together once a week for 9 to 12 weeks. And they make literacy fun. They play games, they write a storybook together. They have that one-on-one attention for an entire hour and a half. And just really the end of it, the kids come out feeling more confident and more excited. We took a hiatus during COVID time, but we were able to start back up last fall. And we're hoping to really build on this model and look at how we might scale this. How could we had the program in University Hill Elementary School, which is a bilingual school. Before COVID, we started again with them in the fall. And there's other schools who have expressed interest. And so we've had it here at Main Library and at University Hill, but looking at what is the scope and scale we can bring a program like that and what ages we can bring it to beyond perhaps third grade. So those will be things we're looking at for the future. And then as Tim and Jamie and others have mentioned, we do programs and events and one-time drop-in things, reaching kids and families on literacy all across our library system. And we've reached thousands of kids through that program and we'll a variety of programs, and we'll continue to do that. Strategic partnerships was another key part of the master plan. And I think it was Tim who mentioned our Student One collaboration with the schools. We also go out to quite a few schools throughout the city, talking about our Summer of Discovery program and they're so excited when that kicks off. They all want to be here after hearing about it in the schools and hearing about the opportunity for teens, middle school and high school to volunteer in that program. And in 2022, we had the largest number of teen summer volunteers, 115 that summer that were involved. And so we keep building opportunities for teen involvement, which is another one of the goals of the master plan. In terms of collaborations, we also collaborate with the schools and with CU to provide a research rendezvous. And so it's middle school and high school students in a number of the schools have to do a research project, a history project, and they compete in a competition. We offer that for a wide range of people to sign up and learn about how to do great research, which is a key part of the library. And one of the pairs that participated last year won at the state level on the history of women wearing pants and went on to the national level. So they got to go out to DC and everything. And then another big piece that we initiated just in the last year and a half was creating a strategic plan for literacy and outreach. There is umpteen opportunities to be out in the community, to engage diverse communities, to really build literacy programs so they're accessible to anybody in our community who needs that support. And it was kind of like, which direction do we go? And so we decided to really take some time right now to build a strategic plan. We involved 40 representatives from organizations across the community, 15 staff members, and together we've interviewed over 125 people in our community. Over half of those being from diverse communities, asking their input and ideas and getting their insight into what would be helpful. And we're just at the process of finishing the first full draft of that, and we'll be gathering feedback on that to finalize that in the fall and be ready for the next 5 years with a really dynamic plan that engages cultural groups, gives concrete ideas of how we can build more welcoming, inclusive libraries, both in the community and internally. And I think it's really going to be a foundational piece for the direction and fulfilling the goals that we've outlined in this plan. To do all this work, we have to have more staff. And so we'll be hiring still this year, a full-time outreach person and another literacy person to be on our team. And we're hoping into the next year to do some more hiring. And there's more. So those are the key things on the literacy and the outreach. And then another piece of the master plan was really around strengthening, expanding our volunteer services area. And each year we have between 650 and 1,000 volunteers that contribute here in the library and are key part of us delivering our services and programs. We continued volunteerism through COVID. We even had volunteers just start for the first time. They trained online. They came in on their own with their masks and their gloves, and they quarantined all our books and made it safer for everybody to be able to continue to participate. The library staff were also able to play a leadership role throughout the city for volunteerism during COVID. So we led up the network of volunteer staff all around the city, helped strengthen and create the vision for the entire city of what volunteerism is, and advocated, and were able to secure a full-time staff member that now leads the volunteer area for the entire city. As Tim mentioned, we transitioned from more of a staff model for our home delivery to all of a model that is delivered by volunteers, deliver all the materials and partner with members across the community who can't get to the library. And we're able to provide that service to anybody who calls up and needs that for an extended period of time. Another thing we said in the master plan is that we wanted to have a survey our volunteers to find out how it was going, improvements, and we were able to do that the last 2 years. Over 93% were satisfied or very satisfied with the volunteer services. So we're in good shape. They love being part of the community. They love working with our staff. They also had ideas, but they weren't any themes. They were concrete ideas, and we've been able to act on it. Another area was around teen engagement and cultivate and activate our teen advisory committees. And I think this was a really critical part during COVID. We used to have, and we have again, Boulder teen advisory committees at the different branches and at Maine. And during COVID, you couldn't get together, but they created an online community. They met once a week. They did fun activities. They got their input. They created ways that they could engage other teens. And it was like a home for those people to come and contribute and be part of community. And now since COVID, as was before COVID, we've instituted those teen advisory committees before, and they're a great place and an avenue for people to contribute to creating a vision and ways for teens to be part of the library. We held 2 teen summits, and those have both been online. So we're hoping to have one in person in the future. And we had good participation, especially in 2020, when we featured the first widely published trans woman YA author, Meredith Russo. So that was really exciting, and a number of teens participated and contributed to not only the planning, but asking questions and just participating in the event. And then during COVID too, we began a LGBTQ book club for teens called Book Worries. And it really was a way to give support and honor that community, create a place of belonging, in empathy for others, and people could see themselves reflected in these stories. We've partnered with Boulder at times to do that. I think we're having it there regularly right now. And then we've had participation from the Gender Sexuality Alliance Club at Niwot. So it's been really good participation the last several years. And we hired our first teen intern to expose teens to working at the library, what it's like, helping make programs and services more accessible to teens, and providing a route for teens to see themselves in the library world. And then one more goal I'm going to talk about, and pass it off to my colleagues here, is around hosting literacy and literature festivals. So as Jamie mentioned, we've had the One Book, One Boulder, which is really a way to promote dialogue, discussion, and literacy in our community. And then each year we've had an annual family literacy festival, which is for 0 to 5-year-olds. And it's promoting literacy for them and their caregivers. So they provide, singing, talking, drawing, dancing, all kinds of things that promote literacy for little kids. And they have activities alongside with that help teach the parents and the caregivers how they can promote literacy at home. And during COVID, we created, like 100 and some literacy kits that people could bring at home with directions and how they reinforce literacy skills. And we partnered with, again, organizations that really got that out. And then lastly on that, we've had an annual Jaipur Literature Festival, which brings together authors and people from around the world to really talk about topics and areas of passion for them. And it really promotes that dialogue and inspiration and cultural diversity and diversity of thinking. And we hope to be able to continue all those cultural events in the future and literacy events. And then Jamie and Tim had a couple more things to add to this area too of the building community.
Yeah, there's a goal specific to designing an engaging inclusivity campaign within the master plan, and the programs and events team also oversees the library's small marketing budget. And so we were able to, we did this a couple of years ago. The city had given us an additional $10,000 to the marketing budget, which allowed us to do this work and create these materials. We made prominent signage for all the library locations. So as you walk in, you see the "All are welcome here" signs and quotes. That was a result of that campaign. And then we also did a crowdsourcing campaign for inclusivity inspired quotes. And so patrons gave us ideas. And then we used those quotes on the coffee cups for Seeds Cafe. We still have a bunch of them that maybe Tone Unseen can use, and also printed them on a lot of our library swag for outreach.
And I'll just quickly touch on one of the goals, which is to cultivate relationships with patrons who are experiencing homelessness. This is something that my staff are really passionate about, finding ways to connect with them and really get them plugged into the library. So we've really focused on empowering staff through training. We've offered all sorts of mental health first aid trainings, and then the Homeless Library Academy, as Antonia mentioned, which really focuses on empathy and building relationships with those folks. Makes it much easier when you have to intervene and de-escalate a situation or force any environment. So those have been really successful. And then we're excited later on, probably in Q4, we'll add a new position called the Library Community Resource Connector, which will really be a staff expert who can help connect these folks to resources in the community. We find that many of these people really trust the library as a source for this information, but staff aren't necessarily up to date on everything available in the community. So this person will really be an awesome resource to get those folks to resource community.
So we've done a lot of great work, and I think really working on building a foundation that we can build from and engage more fully with the diversity of our community. And I think this plan and additional hiring is going to play a really important role. So really excited for the next 5 years as we work to fulfill those master plan goals and the voice of the community and what they've been asking. And I open my door to talk with any of you at any time. I know you're very busy, but if there's any of the topics you want to dig into, just come by.
I just want to say wow and thank you.
We still have one goal to review. You have one more. We do. I think it'll be pretty quick. I have the pleasure of closing it off with a goal, which I think ironically was the most heavy focused yet unplanned work that we've done in the last several years. So with organizational readiness, because of the nature of our world and what we've been through the last few years, we really had to hit pretty heavy on a lot of this stuff in an ad hoc fashion. So again, it was unplanned, but a lot of intense work went into this. And specifically in speaking first to the staff recruitment, training and development to maintain service excellence goal, there's been a significant amount of work with our staff in regards to workplace culture and staff readiness, particularly around assessment of recruiting, hiring, and retention with an EDI lens. And so we had, our group came up with a significant EDI hiring practices recommendation, which we have implemented almost in its entirety. First of its kind in the city, kind of leading the edge in that, which included rewriting job descriptions, changing our interview process, recruiting through community partners, as much as we can, making the review process of applications blind and focusing on bilingual staff and compensating them appropriately. We had the creation of the BPL affinity group, again, leading the city in a practice as that which currently serves Latinx employees and people identifying as Latino. We've done a significant amount of EDI trainings. Again, Laura mentioned the collection review with an EDI and diversity focus. Moving away from EDI, we've done a significant amount with our frontline staff on de-escalation trainings, all locations, mental health first aid. As I mentioned, coordinated person in charge and manager on duty trainings. The management level branch librarians at the branch location significantly improved our manager coverage and our ability to respond to operations management and oversight. Again, it's been mentioned the creation of 2 bilingual public service positions, and library provided Spanish language classes, offered Spanish language resources to all staff on paid time, which is something that we did significantly over COVID and the duration of people working from home. Coincidentally, we concluded our continuity of operations planning about a month before COVID took place. So we were set up pretty good to reopen our facilities. And I believe we were the first in the front range to reopen to public access. And significantly so, like months ahead of any other library, but as well as our story times and other programming. So we've done disaster management planning for all locations in support of organizational readiness. We migrated everything to SharePoint for better sharing and training materials and policy information. We transferred all internal communications to Teams, which Amy mentioned was no small feat, and the amount of time we had to devote to staff training and staff acceptance was not insignificant. And to say that we've transformed our culture is an understatement, but the amount of communication that has been improved by that transition is just I think we can't even put a value on it. It really has improved chats for live and real-time communications for operations and security for all of our locations. For Carnegie particularly, we acquired offsite storage of originals of the Daily Camera from Iron Mountain in June of this year. And the past 3 years, we've invested $10,000 each year into Colorado Historical Newspapers project to digitize the Daily Camera. And this year, 1921 through mid 1924 will be completed. It's free online, word searchable access, which is a vast improvement from using microfilm. So what we're doing now, we've implemented a quarterly review cycle for all library policies so that they're regularly updated and reviewed currently by the Library Commission and soon to be by the Library Board of Trustees. We've just launched this month an internal newsletter where our communication specialist is helping us to improve all things around library district and having seamless and open communication with our staff members on the progress of that. And we also have really, I think, is quite phenomenal internal newsletter that we call Open Book, which helps to build workplace culture, staff communication, getting to know people from other work locations. And it really is something I think that could be published and read by people not even in our organization. They would find it interesting and enlightening. The participation in our staff chat monthly meetings has increased because of the hybrid nature of our meetings. So all I can say is teams. It really has been quite a game changer for us. Our all staff day has transitioned to a pretty significant team building tool that we use to unify staff members from all locations and also set the tone for our work plan moving forward, as well as the workplace culture that we want to set for retention, recruitment, and overall staff unity. So
what's left to accomplish is really quite a lot in this area as well, because we've been so heavily focused on continuity of operations and transitioning from into a hybrid workplace environment. We still have a significant amount to do, specifically some untouched goals around gathering community input, identifying and addressing some ways in improving internal staff communication and team building. These are things that are all top of our mind. And then also, as we hire about 30% of our workforce in addition next year, we have a lot of focus to put on staff recruitment, training, and development to maintain not only the service excellence that we provide to the public, but what has been described by our employees as a phenomenal and unique workplace culture. We need to find a way to maintain that as we transition to a library district, and it won't happen just accidentally. So a lot of real concerted effort is going to go into managing that, and then also taking away the things that we value and appreciate from the city's culture, and how we're going to maintain that and transfer it over to our library district. We'll have a lot of document and policy review and planning to do. So currently we're writing an employee handbook in conjunction with our consultants at Employers Council. All of that infrastructure that really makes a workplace, whether it's HR, employment policies, risk management, all of that stuff we're building from the ground up. As you all know, we're really building this plane as we fly it. So a lot of organizational readiness, goals and commitments to work on, and they've been transitioned a little bit because of our move to a library district, but things that are in our day-to-day work every day. So that's the end of that.
So I was going to talk a little bit about how we measure success, but I think you guys probably want to get into some questions. So if you're interested in how we know we're doing a good job, look at page 64. It outlines the tools that we use to measure our metrics, and also learn if we're meeting the community's expectations. So I'll turn it over to David now, and we'll take questions.
Yeah, I mean, please ask what questions. This is a unique opportunity that you don't get very often. That we bring some of these staff together to tell you news and speeds about like full scope of the work. And if nothing else, it's a huge amount of work. And I hope people agree with me that people leading that work are really confident and passionate. That's what the big takeaway is, but certainly whatever questions you may have this time. But I know we did a big dump, and it's but it's critical for us. This is kind of stuff that we come to every day. As you can see, very diverse array of stuff we are doing, and in all honesty, it's the rise of in which we sort of here to ensure that those things all get done. So great opportunity. I don't know we'll do this again for another 5 years. So like, how about it?
So I'm going to suggest we start with Doug and go around. So if I made him stop.
So
Actually, before
I'd
we
say-
get to questions, I just wanted to invite the 3 staff members who didn't have a presentation, if you wanted to say something, just so we have your voices in the room too.
I'm calling you, and I'm just, I live in Boulder, and I've been here for about 9 years, it's been 9 years, and I had no idea how much how many programs the library provides, and how much, we always let the taxpayers' money go, and this is really amazing, place, and the money that is spent is really like contributing to the community, and I can see it's very beneficial to everyone, and I'm just happy to be part of this group and the library. Yeah.
I'm relatively new to my position. I worked in coordinating volunteers previously with the university and joined the team in January. And so I'm really grateful to be here tonight just to learn more about the bigger picture and, the process. So it's exciting to hear about all of the strategic plan, and I'm excited, to get more people involved. I think volunteerism
is, an invitation to be a part of the library and to be a leader within, the city, but now the library district. And a lot of our volunteers, work across those departments and are a part of that. So I'm just excited through the transition to really keep them engaged. And then, of course, as Kate mentioned, always inviting more people as our community changes and grows. I always want people to feel welcome here and to feel like they can, influence and be a part of our programs. Because those are ultimately the people we're serving and they know the community. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you. I'm excited to be a part of these goals and see what we can continue to do.
So I'm Juan Jimenez. I'm originally from Colombia. This is the beginning of my third week in the job. The newest in the team. I'm very, very excited about being part of the library and just learning all the information that I've been exposed to in the past weeks, and today give me even more envy to expand the programs that I'm part of. And me being a person for a diverse background and with a literary background in literature, so I think I'm in the right place and in the right job. So I was a teacher for over 22 years, and I wanted to do something different than being in the classroom, and but continue with education. And that transition took me a little time just to switch the teacher mindset to something maybe a little broader, wider, and but I found my the right direction I wanted to give to my career. And yeah, it's super exciting about the team, all of you, of course. And exciting to expand the programs to the community, because I think that's the me as member of the community, but also before coming in here, I realized that we don't know too much about the services that the library provides. So part of my job is gonna to reach out to the community and to tell them about the great work and opportunities that we have in here.
Thank you, Benita. Thank you. All right, Don, I think this is scribbling away.
I have 17 pages of questions. Most of my questions I could probably get from David. I think the first one, I guess the first thing is I definitely feel the impact of the pandemic on all of the staff here and all the work you guys did during that. And, it's really impressive and it kind of gets me emotional. So, thank you. And let's see, what else? All of these things I hear are super important, and there's not one thing where I'm like, oh, that's more important than this, but it's everything you're doing is important. So thank you again. So I think on the question I had on the service expansion, because it was one of the things within the master or the ballot initiative, was just basically what does expanded hours look like between the facilities? Is it going to 9 p.m. or
That's a great question. I'm going to bring back Davis. I think we have, I think we'll take a pretty creative.
Yeah.
So we know we'd be happy to have them to be open until 9, so we know exactly the average want to do or after 7 p.m.
Right.
You'll have to decide what you think that's the most cost effective thing for us to do.
Right.
We still have yet to open up card. We need to have those 7 days a week. We've got, 7 days a week, we're looking at a plan for potentially adding 7 days a week or 6 days a week. So those will all represent expansion of hours that we currently offer. There are some hours that we could probably add action points for all of our libraries that we cut prior to during the pandemic. So we'll have to look at that, and I think we can meet the goal that's stated in the ballot. But I think we'll do it in the way that's most effective, really, for you can look at it and say, like, this is a sound investment rather than, oh gosh, we're doing this just to deliver on promise. And we know for the fact that
Right, people,
after a certain hour, this number of people walk through the college.
okay, thank you. And then the other, Amy, are you gonna be managing the IT? Both like the external systems for the customers and all that, and the internal stuff for, is that kind of your new role, this innovation and could, with the, what's the last?
And technology.
And technology, yeah.
So that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
We do outsource support for our integrated library system, our ILS, which is Sierra.
Right,
We use that to check out books and catalog and such. We outsource that. And it's likely we will do the same with some of our larger software platforms that we migrate to, but that is yet to be determined. So
okay,
to push off your question until a later date. Yeah.
no, I get it, thank you. I just, it's a big part of the transition, so I'm pretty interested in it, so. Let's see, I think that's all. That's the rest I can.
Like two random questions. One that came to mind when I was hearing about facilities updates, but defibrillators. Do we have defibrillators?
Yeah, we
already? All of them? Okay.
Where are they?
They're in a red box. There's.
I know the red one, but just physically, like, are they all in a common place or not?
They're in public access. Yeah.
Right outside here.
Okay.
There's the security desk, and then there's one right at the top of the stairs at the wrap-up ramp on the other side.
So every library has defibrillators.
Yes, and
It must be required or something. I just didn't know.
For a number of years.
Yeah.
yeah, we've had them for a while, and we did have all staff at some point trained. Now that's not the case anymore, and our security company is trained on that.
Yeah. Because it doesn't just impact older people, as you
Yeah.
may know. It could be, there was an article about a woman who was in Vail who had an incident and yeah, so she has this campaign now to make sure they're, so it's just playing off that, I guess. But my other question had to do with neurological issues and neurological diversity, or neurodiversity is what I was hearing about at a recent conference with cities. And so young people with autism and learning styles and different reading styles too. And I just wondered what you all were doing in that area to maybe, sort of support or
Right.
amplify resources that are available.
In regards to the physical collections, there's often reports published about different literacy things that would work to increase the comprehension generally, like the large print books with the children that are struggling with processing disorders or dyslexia. That's a new one, but we also had, I don't think we've brought it back yet since the pandemic, but we had sensory friendly story times and some things like that. So we do have some.
In regards to programming, we
Resources
do
available.
focus on this during our story time specifically, and through our Every Child Ready to Read training, we do teach caregivers specific tips to use with children who are learning to read with specific cognitive or neurological conditions. And then, like Laura said, on occasion, we hold specific story times on occasion that are like dedicated to that population, with sensitivity, yeah.
Thank you.
One thing I want to touch on with the defibrillator question, you could administer it. It actually walks you through, so you don't have to be trained. It tells you what to do, and all the supplies are in there. When you open it, it does alarm so that staff are aware that someone has opened the case, but they're pretty neat. I'm happy to have them in all of our facilities. We've had to pull them out many times. I don't know that we've used them, but we've had them at the ready.
That's good to know.
I don't know, really brought back to life. Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing technology. It tells literally what to do. Place this here, like it bosses you around and it only tells you like 3 things. Yeah, after you hear the screech, when you open the door, you will want to be bossed around. Like melts you. It's so loud. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't have any questions. I'm just super impressed and I took a lot of notes. And when I think of questions later, now I know who to reach out to. So yeah, this is an incredible amount of work. Thank you all.
Jennifer, how about you?
I'm trying to decide which questions to ask. I'm actually, I guess,
I have some that are real minutia and some that are kind of broadly for everyone, but I'm curious how often you all revisit progress against the master plan. I imagine it informs your performance goals and things like that as you think annually about what you want to do. But how often do you have the opportunity to do this with each other and sort of individually?
Try to do it once a year, and we have monthly, or I think they're quarterly now, work plan meetings. Where, and it's a broader array of staff who participate in those meetings. And then we also create a report for the library commission, and we'll create one for you all if you want one. Once a year, we just report the progress out on the goals for the past 12 months. So we do that once a year.
So it stays top of mind, it sounds like. And do you have an opportunity to share with each other outside of sharing with the commission and with the board? Are there sort of lunch and learns where people can learn what other divisions at the library are doing?
Great question. We do have a staff chat monthly
Where actually prior to the pandemic, we were taking turns with each division or work group being highlighted at a staff chat and kind of sharing like a resource services 101 with all staff to enlighten them on what they're responsible for, what their current work plan is, what their major projects and goals are. And that's something we could certainly revisit. We haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. And we also do it significantly through new staff onboarding. So there's a checklist where we teach people about all of our current efforts, all of our work groups and the divisions and what they're responsible for that we do for new employees when they come on board with the library. I don't know what else. The lunch and learns we hold are pretty exclusive to like conferences and professional development. So people will come back from ALA or some other major conference and share all of the sessions that they went to, kind of how it applies to our current work and what other work groups might be able to glean from it. Those have been pretty helpful in the past.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just hearing the sheer volume of all of the work that's being done, it feels like if everyone doesn't know about all of this, they should. Tim, BBSD student one, now that we have pulled more geographic area into the district, it includes SVVSD because I know that because I'm in it. And I wondered, you don't have to answer this like broadly, like or in detail, but I wondered if that was another partner that we were considering.
Not currently, but I wasn't aware that the new district boundaries include that. So we can certainly include that. We would just need to expand our MOU with BBSD to include the new schools. And I'm sure, I know other partner libraries in the Front Range have partnerships with St. Brames, so I'm sure that it's something that we can probably pretty easily work out with them.
Yeah, the school boundaries and the district boundaries don't match at all, which is kind of an interesting issue to have. And then Jamie, the 5-part evaluation series training, could trustees take part in that? I think it would be really cool for us to understand sort of what you're, how you're training others to think about this for their own areas.
Yeah, we did it. We hired an outside evaluation expert. She worked for DMNS has its own evaluation team. And so she used to work for them. But she's a great resource. Should you ever want to do a kind of like download 101, she would be a great resource for that. We're also going to be doing an evaluation training, like train the trainer for the 40+ program staff I mentioned at our programming summit in the fall. So you're also welcome to come to that and hear some of the things that we learned from her.
Awesome. I have so many questions. I'm going to stop now, actually, and just come up and approach all of you in the library. And hopefully it won't feel like harassment for me, but I just really appreciate everything that you've done. And I'll hold back because I know we've got other trustees to ask questions. Thank you all.
Sylvia, any questions, comments from you?
Thanks so much, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I did want to ask about the innovation and technology department. Is it anticipated? I would imagine that that department is going to have to grow in order to deal with the new expansion of the scope of work. And I'm wondering what sort of like planning and preparation is underway to be ready for that.
Yes, it definitely will grow. To what extent, we're still working that out. We're in the process of creating the IGA, as you know, with the city on decoupling many things, and IT is part of that. So once we have a better sense of what that looks like and what services make sense to stand up here in the library and what services make sense to outsource, we'll be able to make a more informed decision. But I can say that we will grow an FTE just because of the sheer volume of work that will need to be done in-house.
Okay, thanks. And then just to kind of follow up on Jennifer's question just a moment ago about like tracking the master plan. So I think I heard that it looks like the goals will be met in 2026, 2028. Did I mishear that? Okay, so are there any areas that you feel like maybe you're a little behind on, or maybe you need to put a little bit more effort into? I mean, it honestly sounds like you're on track with everything, but I just thought I'd find out.
Oh, that's a hard question. David, do you?
It's a hard question. I thank you for this, Sylvia. So my sense is that we are well underway in almost every area aside from outreach. So outreach is really just in its beginning phases, even though it's been part of the plan for 20 years. This is the first time we've ever put together a strategy. And, for a lot of reasons, most of all, impact and growth. I don't know that we know how far we'll go yet, right? So I could sit down with you if you wanted to and go over the metrics of what adding buildings will do. The metrics on outreach are a little bit more elusive, and I think could have a significantly higher rate of both impact and growth than I anticipate in almost any other area. So it's still a little unknown, right? I get it. I know what we're trying to achieve, but it's like if we are successful, we need to be able to say, let's take it to the next phase and the next phase. Opening a gun barrel branch is awesome, right? We can do that. Starting with outreach is like we may start and find that that's where the bulk of growth occurs, because we already have like something like 78% saturation of card holders, households with cards. That's not going to grow much bigger, and it would be probably a waste of our time to make it a goal to say let's get to 83. But when we go into outreach right now, we're doing some, but very little, and the potential for impact there is great. And it's kind of like taking Boulder Reads and massively expanding its capacity. So where does it stop? And so that is going to be a hard one for us to get our hands around in the next 3 years. I think in 3 years, we'll know more about what we have to do in the next phase, I think.
So when you say outreach, you mean like Boulder Reads and like a PhD program?
Well, the PhD program is actually run quite good, but it's a matter of really like how can we impact literacy rates on people of whatever age.
Okay.
In communities that are not currently using it.
Okay.
So, we have the highest visitation rate in private banking in the state.
Right.
Highest visitation, our circulation rates are rival anybody's per capita in the state. So, I don't know, it's an assumption that libraries made 70 years ago. If people need anything, they know where to find us, right? And we've all kind of lived off of that assumption for a long time. Outreach asks a different question. That's really, is there anybody out there that needs anything, and how can we help them?
Okay.
So that is a very different equation than saying, like, if they want anything, they know where to find us, right? And for that, it's pretty straightforward about how we build the model. We're saying, like, is there anybody out there that needs something? What is it they need? How can we assist them? That's a slightly different equation for us. I think we'll discover in the next couple of years.
Can I comment on?
No, if we can just keep it with the board right now, that would be
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Um,
Sylvia, did you have any other questions?
That's all for me. Thanks so much, everybody. I mean, really wonderful presentations. I'm so much to be proud of. Thanks.
Let's keep saying. Sam, how about you?
Yeah, I would just echo that. A couple of the things I was wondering about have been addressed in questions from my other board colleagues. I'm really grateful to you for your presentation, for your work as library leaders. And it's helped me sort of remind me and motivate me about, why we're all doing this work. So thank you for that. We just kind of had to dive into the nuts and bolts of the transition on this board. So it's great to hear from all of you about what's going on and, why we're doing the work. So thanks again.
My questions were also touched on by everybody, so echo those things. I was part of the 2008 master plan, so it's actually wonderful to see how you guys have taken that and run with it. And again, so limited resources, able to really hone in on what matters, get things started, and get yourselves into such a great place we can take off now that we can actually resource you appropriately. So thank you. That's great. Just in here. Any other comments or questions from board members before I think on this? We are being asked to adopt the master plan, so adopt the work we just heard about. So we're going to need a motion to do that.
I just want to make one comment to Sylvia is that the 5 things that are in the ballot measure are also in the master plan and haven't been accomplished. So that's another area. That's what where we say where we have to go. I think for me, that's what I look at first. And one of them was a COVID-19 recovery, and it'd be nice to maybe track that somehow, so that we can report out on it. I don't know how to do it. Right. She knows that. Yeah.
Okay, does somebody want to make the motion to approve the 2008 master plan for the library?
I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the 2018 to 2028, the 10-year master plan for the Boulder Public Library.
Right, there a second? Sarah, okay, great, all those in favor? Aye, online?
Aye.
Yeah. Okay, passes unanimously. All right, thank you, guys. It's a great basis for us going forward. And thank you, yeah. Why don't we take a 5-minute break here so we can reconfigure and then come back in and start again. It is approval of minutes. I'm going to check in here on process. At our agenda setting meeting last week, we thought it would make sense to try to approve minutes a month at a time since we've got some catching up to do. The May 16th meeting minutes were in the packet tonight. Kim sent out the 23rd and the 30th this afternoon. And Kelly, thank you for stepping into the breach. Your minutes, by the way, are excellent. So just a question for the board. I assume we can act on the 16th because everybody's seen them. Can we act on the 23rd and the 30th minutes tonight, or do you need time to review those before we approve? Who feels confident that we can go forward with all 3 tonight? Can I see a raise of hands here?
I haven't read anything that was received this afternoon, unfortunately.
Okay, so let's just 16th tonight and move the 23rd. And
okay.
The 30th.
Sorry about that.
No,
Could I ask a question about the format of the minutes?
Sure.
Oh, I was just curious. I noticed in the minutes for the 16th that we don't name the person who does the seconding. And I just was curious if the board was okay with that. Or if we want to name the person who makes a second on a motion.
Strong feelings, folks?
Oh, was that Sylvia?
Yes.
As the secretary, what do you think? What's your view?
Well, I generally like to see who the second is, just because if there's a question or if there's ever like a concern about conflicts of interest, it's nice to just have a little bit more detail about who that other person is who helped move the motion forward.
Makes sense? So if that's the case, I'm not sure that we can amend the minutes of the 16th tonight with seconds, because we probably have to go back and look to see who did those seconds. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just defer approval of minutes for May until next week. And take up the 3 steps at that time.
That sounds good. Thank you. And sorry, Kim.
That's okay. I'm sorry we didn't get them out to you sooner. That's totally on me. And Kelly's the one who's getting it caught up, so.
Well, we appreciate that. So many balls in the air. Okay, so library district director updates.
So just briefly, the facilities report is due this Friday. They are on time and we expect to see it. So we'll probably be bringing facilities report back to the subcommittee first and then to the entire board sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The financial modeling software is also near completion. We hope to wrap that up in the next 2 weeks. So again, once we get it out, we'll bring it to the finance committee to see and play around with, and then we'll bring it to the full board to discuss some of the things. We're looking at a lot of different things. It's very robust right now. We sat down to review it again today, and I think we have to simplify some things, obviously, before it's ready to go. And then lastly, the IT firm we agreed to a contract with last week will be coming next week just to say hello and greet you. Hopefully you can put him at the beginning of your agenda so he can introduce his company and say hello at least. He won't be back then again until August 8th. And the city of Boulder Department of IT is scheduled to come and present to you their plan for the decoupling. So those things are all in place. And then the last thing that I wanted to do tonight is to get some feedback on the request for proposal in the packet. It's a fairly comprehensive request for proposal for employee benefit broker. So this is something that in tandem with several other things that we're working on that was alluded to tonight with the employee handbook and that kind of thing, is putting together the benefits package and primarily shopping around for health insurance. So as you probably know, right, healthcare insurance will make up about probably more than 10% of your overall budget. We're looking probably at in the vicinity of $2 million of the bill. Our intent is to make it as seamless a transition as possible for the staff. So that kind of predicts what some of that program will be. And then in my next thing, we're going to cover the staff report on employee benefits. So to get a little further insight into that, what I'm hoping tonight is that you can either provide with some feedback about what you think of the RFP. It's the first big one we're doing. I will send it directly to 6 firms that I've already spoken with, in some cases at length, about what our situation is. 6 of those firms have reviewed the current benefits plan that we have. All 6 of those firms came recommended either to the city, to other libraries, or from somebody on the board of trustees. So those groups, I've spoken to all of them. There are 2 national firms, 2 regional firms. One regional is statewide, the other one is regional more broadly than Colorado, but not beyond a few western states. And then the others are local firms, so firms that are primarily in Boulder and providing services there. So we will put out the RFP, hope to have results back from them in about 2 weeks or less, at which point then I will review them with the subcommittee on personnel. Jen and Sam agreed to review them with me, and I have a form for rating them based on the questions and stuff that we have here, and bring back a recommended firm so that we can get started. It's a pretty big lift. None of the firms that I talked to thought our tentative draft deadlines were at all problematic, and so the tentative draft deadlines, again, if you remember, is to bring back a benefits package in the last week of August or the first week of September, which then we could present to you and then subsequently to staff to get staff feedback all the way for 3 to 4 weeks. So they can have a chance to react to what the proposed benefits package is for the district. So I'm happy to take any questions or feedback you might have. I'd love to make this thing shorter, I guess, is what I wish, but I don't know that there's any questions in here that we can't ask.
Jennifer or Sam, why don't we start with you? You guys have any questions or comments?
We had a chance to review it before it was in the board packet. So we sent some comments to David. One of them, I just said, you asked the person responding to the RFP to be brief, and the RFP itself is 8 pages. But I think it's a great RFP, and David did a great job with it.
Yeah, and I had one minor thing. I think it's great, very thorough, and I look forward to hearing back.
Anybody else? Questions?
Really basic question. So insurance brokerage firm, that's not a company that provides benefits. That's a company that goes out and finds them.
Well,
Is what I understand that?
That is correct. So in the case of these 6 groups that King recommended, they provide a various array of services, some of which do provide direct primary care. So they do, in some cases, you'll see that some of the bids will come in and they'll have an office where you can go see a doctor and that kind of stuff, but not all of it. The objective really is for them to put together a plan for us to consider. Those plans are going to be pretty different, I think, from the 6 firms.
And so is it a vision that the successful broker is coming back to us with one option or an option of like several, and then employees get to choose which package they want?
Yeah, so it will be the latter.
Okay.
Benita, so the way in which the city does the process, and I should have stepped on that step, covered that step. So once the package is there, they'll have an opportunity to provide feedback about what changes they may want to have with regard to deductibles or expansion of a plan, things that are not included or not included. They'll have a chance to go out and look for those with the benefits broker and shop those and put them back into the plan prior to budget approval. You'll have an opportunity to review it then prior to the budget, understand the costs, can we afford it? Once you've approved the budget, it's our intent then to make job offers of the current staff and start planning for hiring new people. Once staff have accepted a job offer, they'll go into that open enrollment period. So roughly middle of November or early December, open enrollment will begin. And then staff will have the opportunity, maybe staff who've never enrolled in the city's benefits package will choose as a member of the district because the benefit plan might be better or different for them. They may choose to enroll in the plan, and then we'll base the cost off of that. So it'll ultimately be based off of the enrollment, which will occur until November, December. We'll price it out and in the expectation that we're going to hit certain metrics. And how people choose to participate in the plan. There is a variety. You can choose a high deductible plan, you can use PPO, you can choose various HSAs. There are also a number of supplemental plans that we will offer in that package, which staff can select, which they would then pay for. It's not paid for by the employer, but those packages, they may benefit from having them simply by being part of a group package. Most of the insurers, we're not going to get a different rate. Right? So Cigna, they're all going to go to Cigna because that's what we currently use. And they see that in the current plan. So they're all going to go to Cigna with an idea of what they can do. Those prices are not going to vary from one broker to the next. It's really going to be, that package would be pretty standard. It's how the brokers' fees work and what type of services that they provide for us that will determine who we choose, right? It's not so much the cost of Cigna itself, because they're not going to, somebody might come back and say, we could do 5% better with United. We'll have to talk about that. That would be disruptive a little bit for staff. They may come back and say, we could do 20% better if you go with Kaiser. Kaiser is a 180 from basically what Cigna is. I think that would be too disruptive, I would not recommend. But nevertheless, what these brokers come back with will vary from group to group. And also what services they're providing. You know, it's very interesting to see how you put a claim in, it's denied. How do they handle it? So how does the individual broker, because the broker will be handling that for us. Some brokers will say, call the insurance company. That's their solution. Their solution will be like, here's the phone number, here's the 800 number, call the insurance company and ask them why they did it. Others will fully manage that process for you. You call to the broker and say, my claim was denied. They will follow up and resolve that case.
So the broker is a long-term relationship.
It is a long-term relationship, and some of these companies that are bidding, but they have clients who they've dealt with for years and years. We'll also be looking at that for references.
So under the minimum qualifications, there's that bolded line. Proposers may not contact the insurance marketplace or discuss our account with underwriters until we have made our final broker selection. Like, how do you control that?
Asking for it. I mean, so in fact, one of the companies we're interviewing is the company that manages the city, it's the broker for this. It's a large national firm. It has currently access, if they want to choose to do so, all of the information, the census data on all my staff. They can know if they choose to, like every medication that any of us are on, right? That would give them an unfair advantage. We did check with the city about the possibility of enabling any broker who's interested in bidding to contact the city's HR department to share that census data with them. I've talked to that company that has access. I don't think they're going to do it. It's a big national firm. That's city. I don't think they're going to go through and parse out 100 or so staff members we have and look at their full census data. You know the basics. Library staff skew slightly older than the city at large, average. But not very much. That doesn't frighten most of the companies. So if we can save money because of the health, low risk, we're not running into fires. So the city's insurance plan may be more expensive than what the district provided to somebody.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? David, do you need a motion from us on this, or is this just?
I do not. This is something that we talked about a month or so ago. I said that I would bring this to you. You know, in the end, there will be no direct cost that you'll see from the broker. So there's not another time. I mean, we'll be bringing back the recommended broker for you to discuss and talk about a little bit what we're doing. That's probably 3 weeks from tonight or 4. Yeah, at that point, we launch into it. But ultimately, you will be approving a budget that has probably $2 million or so in benefits as an expense to the district. And that doesn't include retirement, which, as you remember, as we're talking about now, we're pursuing parent. So parent is its own thing.
So you'll review the RFP responses with your staff or with Jen?
With Jen and Sam, and
Okay.
perhaps Jennifer. I think Jennifer will also be involved because ultimately Jennifer will oversee the HR and finance department in the district.
Okay.
And I think it's important that she's there, even though we don't have HR staff. Primarily who the benefits broker will be working with in 25 and 26 is HR. Right? Not me.
You need Jennifer Ferris.
Yeah, Jennifer Ferris. Both Jennifers.
Okay.
Great. I want to go over the employee survey. I apologize for not getting this in your packet. It was simply an oversight. The survey wrapped up about 2 weeks ago. We've begun, in a sense, working off of some of the information that we gathered. So I just want to go over it pretty quickly in the handouts that I sent you. And I apologize, Sylvia and Sam. Jen let me know that she wasn't going to be here tonight, so I sent her the packet, but I have not sent it to you. Sam, I'll share it with you tomorrow. And Sylvia, I'll send you an email after the meeting tonight.
I can forward it, David, right now, because
that would be awesome.
I can do that.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks.
So 77 of the 81 people we sent it to filled out the survey. That's pretty remarkable fill rate. And as you can imagine, they were highly motivated to do so because it was about their benefits. So, and also about compensation. So the first question, while interesting, is a little bit of a miss, right? So the way we constructed the first question was there was a list of 20 or so things, said choose the top 5 and the bottom 5. When we never intended to eliminate any of them, we were just trying to understand from the staff what they valued the most and what they valued the least in terms of like, if we are limited in terms of resources, what could we feasibly look at maybe doing something different with? But you can tell from the survey. So what it doesn't tell you is how many people didn't rank, right? So when you look at the very first one, the healthcare package, 76% of the staff rated it in the top 5. The other, whatever, 24% did not rate it. Nobody rated it in the bottom 5%. So then if you just want to carry that through, then you can see the things that were highly rated: healthcare, dental care package, continuity of para, and to a lesser extent, but I think it's leave benefits rated pretty high. And then to a somewhat lesser extent, merit. I think there was some confusion around what merit meant there. I think most staff interpreted merit to be the city's current plan for merit, which is tied to performance review process. Essentially what this question is, how highly do you evaluate getting raises every year? And I know this is a miss because 9% of the staff didn't think it had any value at all. And only 45% said it was in the top 5 categories. And I assure you, it is more important. So that's question 1. Question 2, we start to get into a little bit more specific questions in terms of healthcare benefits offered by the city and how important are you. And this gives you a rating where they see. So again, it's all the same things that rank highly. And in all likelihood, nothing, although the numbers start to skew a little bit more neutral in some areas, that may speak more towards the plan that the city offers than in terms of the value that somebody could get from some of these things. So I can tell you from the comments on the staff, although we didn't get clearance from the staff to share with you all the comments, the response to the healthcare plan was to a certain extent a little ho-hum, right? So it was kind of like, it's okay. It's better than what I had at my other employer. Please don't do worse. That's kind of like the gist of the overall commentary. And you couldn't see that play out in the responses to the questions. We then cover it in terms of dental and vision plans, which I think is relevant, but those plans are relatively inexpensive in the overall scheme of things. When you look at the cost of benefits, it's probably 1% of cost. We will have a plan as good as or better than what the city has. There are a lot of options to choose from. I think there are 2 major plans that we could shop for in terms of vision. And really the dental one is there's no plan that's available to purchase. We'll just try to do as well as we can. Where it starts to get a little bit more interesting is on the next ones, obviously continuity of para. You can see that it's overwhelming. 95%, 94% rated as very important or somewhat important. We have already begun pursuing that path with para in the last 2 weeks. It's going to be relatively easy. They promise it's going to be easy. I don't know if it's going to be easy until it's done. They believe our time frame is well within reach, and the January start date will not cause any problems for them to transferring all the para.
What's the vesting period with para? Is it 5 years?
Para has 2 plans now, right? So we are, for the employees that are currently working for the city, they won't have a choice. So when you started over the last 3 years, para started a defined contribution plan as well as the defined benefit. So if you have been in para for more than 5 or 6 years, you were in a defined benefit plan. That's your employer matches 15%. You can put in a certain percent, and that's mandated by the legislature. We don't have a choice. We put in what the contribution is. And the defined benefit plan is one that they carried for many, many years. Of that 15% we contribute, 10% goes to the employee, their salary. 5% goes to the unfunded liability of para operating in kind of in a vacuum for several decades. And so that, but that's mandated by the state legislature, changes from year to year. And so right now, you know, in previous years, para shows up on the books as a liability for the city. In the last year, it actually showed up as an asset because para has fixed whatever problems they had and they're currently, you know, projecting good health out for a long period of time. They made some serious changes in order to achieve that. And I would encourage you, I encourage the staff also to read about those changes. It's still a good plan. And the match that the city makes as a local government, the match that the district will make as a local government entity is mandated by the state legislature. The defined contribution plan allows you to vest from day one, right? So the amount of money you put into para is the amount you take out. So for new employees, beginning in January 1st, we will have to offer them that option. You want to be either in the defined contribution plan or the different benefit plan. Para also has a number of supplemental retirement forms, which we cannot match. We could, but it would be above 15%. We can't decide like, hey, let's don't put in 15%. Let's put some of it into your 401k or your 457. We cannot. So that's, there is a pretty locked down system.
There's the question on the defined contribution. They get whatever they put in plus the match.
Yeah, we would still put in 15%, the same.
And investing, I mean, there's no vesting for the match either.
No, you start day one. You can choose the defined contribution plan, whatever you put in, you can leave it and then it carries.
Para employees pay social security.
They do not.
Nothing, nothing. They won't get,
We do city employees.
they won't qualify for social security. Yeah,
Right, and city employees do pay.
unless they've worked 10 quarters. That's a big order.
And can I ask a related question to that? Nancy?
Please.
So the district's contribution to para is mandated by law. Are we going to be able to look at doing a match for a supplemental retirement savings plan, or is that something that we have to see how it comes in through? In the budget?
We can see, I mean, our current cost with the current library is about $900,000 that we pay into para. And when we factor in adding about 30 or so employees in 2024, our para match is going to be about 1.3, 1.4 million, right? So it's a large chunk of change in the overall schema of our benefits, total benefits package that the district would be paying. Let's say it's $2 million for healthcare, which is probably about right, and 1.5 for para. It's a chunk of change. So what we can offer above and beyond that, all the other things with regard to the benefits plan, parental leave, you know, short-term disability, long-term disability, all those things we will be paying for. They don't amount to another $300,000 total. So is there money left over for a small match into a supplemental retirement system? I don't know. My conjecture now would be not. And that's because 15% mandated by the state legislature for government employees is higher than what most employers, I don't know about your employer, most employers do not offer a 15% match. The university offers, you know, they do para for their labor force. Faculty are on a different plan. I think the fact they offer 10%, up to 10%. They'll give 200% of your contribution, individual contribution, and they cap individual contributions at 5% or less.
Yeah, but then in non-parent employees, those employees also are eligible for Social Security in most cases. So that's just why I raise it. I mean, in my experience, having a match is a real inducement for people to do the supplemental retirement, and especially if you don't have Social Security, that supplemental retirement can be really. So we can just look at that to see if that's a possibility. I think that would be helpful. I think library staff are not on the highly paid side of the circuit for the most part. So planning for retirement for them, safe retirement is a tough thing.
The last two questions.
David, can I stop you there and just ask
Please.
on question 5, what is the third row referring to? Maybe it's just
The third column is neutral.
No, the third row, so it's continuity of parents, supplemental retirement savings, and then there's a blank. So question 5.
Yeah, at least on my copy, that row is blank in terms of what
Yeah.
it refers to.
Numbers, but there's no explanation.
I'm
It's a
sorry,
mystery, Sam.
I'll have to get back to you, Sam.
Well, it wasn't important, as important
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, like, so we, yeah, I had sent this to someone else for reformatting and putting it in a, like with colors and stuff like that, that I'm very good at. And I think something must have got deleted. I don't know, Sam, I apologize. I'll have it for you tomorrow. Questions 5 and questions 6 and 7. Fairly interesting because this will be important in terms of the overall leave and compensation, which will be a big part of what the employee handbook will have in it. So the more the employment package rather than the benefits package, but so for leave, we asked staff the question about whether they wanted to stay with the system like the city with separate vacation and sick leave or move to a PTO plan. It's roughly 50-50. And honestly, again, in the comments, a number of people said, I don't know what PTO is, I've never been a PTO system, but perhaps if you explained it to me, I might change my vote. So this is really a 50-50 split. We'll have a lot of communicating to do based on what we come out with. But I think a number of people are both interested in PTO is more of a do with your time as you choose. Doesn't matter if you're sick, having a mental health day, taking a vacation. It's all one bucket of time. It does have a cash value. So all of it has a cash value. Sick leave would be provided in that system based upon state guidelines and not around city currently provides, which is unlimited accruals.
David, can I ask a question about that related to some of the comments I saw in this document? Some employees were concerned about having sick leave and vacation merged because people would tend to then not take sick leave when they're sick, so they use it as vacation. Are you able to send people home if they're sick and force them to take sick leave on a PTO plan?
Force them? I don't know that we can force anybody to take sick leave. What we will do in the plans, the city has a very defined vacation amounts, right? So the vacation amounts, there's 13 or 14 different categories based on your length of service and whether you're a management or union, all these kind of things. We'll make that simple and add enough time that it would accommodate for significantly more time than what they currently have on vacation. So that would, my assumption is if we go with a PTO plan, they would have more PTO than what they currently accrue in cash value vacation time. They would accrue that in PTO. Sick time, the state requires as well. So we would provide sick leave in addition to it. The state mandates minimum 48 hours a year. So basically a week and a day. I think we could probably do more than that, although we have reviewed the sick leave reports and median, surprise, the median use, so half the staff above or below, guess what the number is? 48. And so it's like pretty interesting that that's the number that they were talking about. And my staff were aware of even that, but when you look at sick leave usage, the median usage is around. It's 48. It's not around, it is 48 hours. So I think we can probably provide more. The average use of sick leave is higher than that. That number is heavily skewed by 5 or 6 people who have legitimate reasons of FMLA or whatever else like that. So that skews the average up higher. I think the average is around 66 for the entire organization if we take out the top the three highest and the three lowest, that number drops to 60. If you take out the six highest and the six lowest, the number drops to 50. So it's pretty interesting to review that data and just see how people are using sick leave as well. So I think they have adequate sick leave now. And how they use it is interesting because the city's unlimited accrual. There is a staff member with enough sick time to take the entire year off sick. And they have no way of ever actually doing that. They have well over 2,000 hours of sick time.
I'll say, at least the places I've worked is you have so many sick leave hours, like 80 hours or something. And then you would go on to, actually, in my work, if you've been out for more than 5 days, and you're gonna be out longer, you'll go on to short-term disability. And then that pays, depending on how long you've been in the company, for so many weeks, and a percentage, I forget how it works, and then after 12 weeks, you'll go on to long-term disability.
Yeah, I guess it's sick leave part.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing you saying is the PTO, they'll still have sick leave separate from PTOs?
Yeah, that's mandated.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna
Okay, so then that's what I think needs to be clarified.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of education that we need to do around the current, what the benefit is currently and their ability to use it. And
so the seventh question, there's a table involved as well. And this was fascinating. It's a complex question, but it brought about some of the more interesting results of the survey. There's relatively, if you look at the scale, the bar scale below, and the ratings are quite close around the rank of cost of living and merit increases. But if you look at the table, you'll see that there is a uniformity around cost of living increases as a form of pay. And the two issues that were probably the most complex in the overall survey as a whole were merit, which there were about an equal number of people who said merit is great because that's the only way we have of distinguishing employees one from the other. It's the only way we have of motivating employees. On the obverse side, there were an equal number of people who said merit is inherently biased. It is open to use. It is the means by which supervisors reward employees that they like and punish employees that they don't. And so that is pretty interesting takeaway. The city's system of merit is, I don't think it's unique, and a lot of companies do it. You know the amount of dollars in advance. You know how it broke out the previous year. So basically you base the percentages of what you're going to get on merit based on that information. So rather than being an average bell curve, it is more like the head of a whale. And so the staff supervisors have figured out over the course of time, this is the only way to reward people for raises. And so the merit system itself is skewed, and everybody skews towards outstanding because that's the way to get them a 3% increase, which is what the city has used to go past 4 or 5 years. To get 3.25, you have to do outstanding. If you've done your job well, you get 3%. So it's not really a motivating factor. I wanted to cover briefly the secondary thing, which is just a breakdown that Jamie and Tim McClellan did around the comments section. And so some of these are relevant. I'm not sure anything that had more than 20 comments on it. I think she rated, she also thinks it's a plan. But you can see, again, on the comments around the current benefits, keeping everything and making sure that they're not worse was kind of the overarching theme. There's kind of an across the board, a lot of people weighed in on the specific health plan that they wanted. No real uniformity there. Some impetus to reduce out-of-pocket expenses. And then when you get to the later in questions related to leave, some impetus on unlimited time off. This is a program which is we will give serious consideration to and have been for some time. It's in popular parlance, it's unlimited PTO. It has no cash value, which is drawback. So, this is something that we will all have to consider. It's not high on my list, but enough people did mention it, that it's worth bringing to your attention. In all likelihood, if we implemented a program like this, leave would not change, and the district would save money, honestly, because there's no cash value to accrued leave when you leave the organization. Since it's unlimited, there's no amount to pay out, which we look at that accrued, like accrued leave now is worth $350,000. If all of us retire at once, there's a payout. And so it's an interesting question. I think we'll be doing a lot of conversations with staff around that as well, because for managers, then it also opens managers to some levels of subjective implementation of leave. And I honestly feel as if program where we have where you do accrue leave at a certain rate and are owed it makes a lot more sense for an organization like this, so that there is a real cash value, it's capped at a certain amount, and managers encourage their staff to take the leave so they don't lose the time. And staff feel as if that time is owed to them rather than you work for 4 years and forget to take vacation. And nobody really cares. So
I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around unlimited leave.
well, the way companies do it is truly a recruiting tool, right? And so then if you're a company, GE does it now. Many.
I'm actually currently at my first job as a lawyer that doesn't have unlimited leave.
In research and lawyer type jobs, it's quite common. It is not common in service level jobs. So you almost never see it in healthcare. You obviously never see it at
How does it work?
food industry. Well, so you set up the
Who has it? How does it work?
so you set it up with policies, right? So you have unlimited leave. You can take as much vacation as you like, so long as these conditions are met. You can never take more than 2 weeks at a time. Your leave cannot lead to staff shortages in your absence. You cannot go leave when you have a project due in a certain amount of time. So in other words, the way in which it plays out in some companies is that actually leave, people taking leave, and there's data that shows that it basically stays the same or declines in usage of sick leave because people feel pressure not to take leave because they know they're working on a project. I can see how it would work in certain companies, and certainly you can see how it's appealing when you're recruiting people to a job. It's like, you get unlimited PTO. Oh, but don't read the fine print because you might not take a vacation.
So it's an attempt
2
to try
years.
to make performance-based charge leave. As long as you're doing your job, we don't care.
Yes.
Yeah, but it works, it winds up being the opposite in my experience. That there's tremendous pressure not to take a lot of leave because how could you get your job done? Yeah, a lot of things.
You've always got things going.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was just having trouble
Yeah.
visualizing that, but.
So again, a communication thing. Don't
You have unlimited leave.
I have other notes, but I think that kind of covers it. Really, it's like, when you look at the benefits, continuity of para, a robust healthcare plan that is not worse than what they currently have. Staff do want to continue to get raises. There's a lot of uniformity around the idea of getting a cost of living adjustment. I think we'll have to contend with that as we go forward, at least for the next few years, because the city has never done cost of living adjustments. The items that was most essential. So in substance, the most interesting topics in the survey were merit, where there were totally disparate opinions, and hybrid work. So hybrid work was also a question in the survey. It generated more comments than anything. And it was pretty, they were pretty much in diametrically opposite numbers. If you stop doing hybrid work and then leave the organization, if you continue to do hybrid work in the manner that you craft the policy the city does, then it's unfair and so we are currently looking at how we could look at scheduling to be able, if it's affordable, for us to provide some form of hybrid work for all employees in the district, even if that means 1 day a month. As you know, more than half the staff work in direct provision of public service every day. We do have some shifts that they do currently. They have time in training, they have time in call center, there are opportunities we've We did avail ourselves of during the pandemic, but we have not since we reopened because their presence is required to directly serve the public. So we have to figure out some response for them. That was a very interesting discussion. And I think we'll probably come back with a policy in a handbook that allows for some level of hybrid for it.
And so union would come into this as well, right? Because one of the things that are now is presenting using volunteers in certain positions has been union.
You know, we look at the jobs, we cannot use volunteers to replace jobs that are clearly defined as staff jobs, right? Union jobs. So that hasn't been a huge impediment. We have a lot of opportunities for volunteers, and there are a lot of tasks and things that are done within the library that are not.
I was thinking about it the other way, not opportunities for volunteers, but opportunities to extend staff. If you can use volunteers in some ways that you can't right now.
Yeah.
David, the hybrid workplace piece seems like a really good area where we could do some benchmarking with other library districts or just library systems. Because I do think there's a unique piece around, there are some like corporate employees or sort of admin employees who could work from home ostensibly always, and the frontline employees who can't. I wonder if other libraries have done this successfully or figured out a way to do it.
Yeah, we'll ask. I mean, there have been a lot of conversations about it over the years, and so the city defined policy. Most districts do not have a policy. But the city's policy allows, with supervisor approval, with staff to work from 3 days a week. The library's policy is a shortened version of that because the application of it is into the discussion with the manager, which is me. So we've changed ours to be 2 days a week. So you have currently staff, if with approval of their supervisor, can work from home 2 days a week. We don't allow 3, but yeah, it's the staff who are in direct permission. We have to really kind of figure out something that allows them to at least have, and all of the data, right? So there's a lot of data on this. And so it shows, especially among younger employees, and I don't want to overly characterize, but the data is there, that 1 day off a month, employee satisfaction jumps among younger employees, something like 25%. It's crazy, like how the impact of essentially a gesture can have a large impact on people's perception of equity and like what it's like to work for this organization. So I think we have at minimum to be able to figure out 1 or 2 days a month. And I think it's doable. And when we come back, it's all coming up the next 2 months. So I can bring policy back for you that has your discussion. What I think it's worth considering, even if it means it costs us hiring an additional staff member or 2 in order to facilitate that happening. From the survey, if you were to read the comments like I did, you would realize like, you just better do this. You've got to figure it out. And so we do have to figure it out. And so there may be a cost associated with doing that. I mean, we have to hire an extra, some additional subs, implement tiers, which costs staff as well. And so all these things cost some money, but overall, you're probably talking less than $100,000 for a policy which is on top of mind for a lot of the staff that will serve. That's more than I intended to do, but are there any other questions about this? Well, we're reacting to this to the extent that what we're telling the benefits brokers is we want a plan better than what the current city plan is. We want to see what the cost of that is. And we're moving forward with para and trying to develop a schedule, look at the overall schedule to see how we might be able to use hybrid policy.
The cell in question 5 that is blank is flexible spending account plans such as healthcare, flexible spending account, dependent care, flexible spending account.
You guys able to hear that online?
Yeah, thanks.
We got it. Thanks.
Zero cost, probably some cost matrix. They're just batters. They just don't cost us anything. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Then item number 8, we'll make a couple of comments on process before we do that. This is the first time we're dealing with something on which we don't have to agree on. And that's gonna come up. We're not gonna agree on things all the time. So I would like to suggest that we kind of look at this as a model for how we deal with disagreements and among ourselves going forward. What I always think is important for any board action is to have something in writing in the packet that outlines what the issues are and outlines what the board's requested action is. So I did that here. And then I would suggest for process that it makes sense for the person who's making the proposal to speak to that, the what and why stuff. We've been talking about the what and why here. And then David talking about his what and why of he's seeing instead. And then we can open it up for discussion among the board. I think it would be helpful for all of us to kind of speak to this just as part of learning to understand different things. So, if everybody can share ideas on this. I will say that after a lot of thought, I don't support this, and I have some specific reasons for that, which I could share whenever that's appropriate. So does that make sense to everybody as a process here going forward on this one? Hearing silence, I will take that to the center. Anita, excuse me, you want to kick us off?
Well, so you're the one that wrote this piece,
Yes.
right? Okay, so wasn't aware of that, or who wrote it. So I really don't know what I'm being asked to do here. And I've communicated with Cara about this, and what came up at our agenda review meeting was just, David saying that it was an issue of time and process and sort of the need related to the component of the RFP that we had talked about related to the longer term planning and work of this consultant, that wasn't something that he saw that was needed. And
sorry, we should back up. But I think what you're talking about is that we had previously discussed putting up an RFP this year to do a strategic plan around communications.
Right, that was like sort of the
Library
longer
district.
term piece of
Yeah,
it.
that's what sort of the original discussion was. And what you're saying is that when you talked to David about it, that David said he didn't think that would make sense to do this year. I'm just trying to catch everybody up because I didn't know all of this until,
Yeah.
So that's the background.
Yeah, and I didn't bring it up, David brought it up, and so that's why I'm like sort of feeling like, what am I carrying here? Love to carry water, but I'm just not even sure what it is that I'm supposed to be representing here. So as you, Johnny, talk about like a process here, I'm not even sure what it is. And so, I was sensing that, like David was saying, like, we really don't need this component of the RFP consultant, communications consultant to be doing this longer term piece, and maybe it is short term piece. But Carr was saying like maybe it isn't even a short term piece, like maybe we would just be doing that ourselves. And then, like from my view, I just think the communication and outreach and what the transparency of what we're doing is really important. So if it's not through a communications RFP, then it's got to be through something else. So
Well, let me then try and channel what I heard, because I've been kind of the spectator in this conversation now for some time.
Me too.
And so what I have heard is Benita, you asking to do something this year on what the communication subcommittee has proposed around communications and outreach, right? We keep talking about an RFP and a statement of work.
No, I haven't. It wasn't my idea.
Well, if you don't, then you could just drop it. I'm thinking, and David has said,
I thought we needed a consultant to help us with communications.
and I've heard David saying, don't really have the capacity, but that's not something we want to do. We have a different approach.
Yeah, so maybe I misunderstood. I thought the initial request was a full-blown approach. So for communication, engagement, marketing, all of those things that we're talking about in those initial meetings. And like, for me, that was like, that's a consultant to come in and build a strategic plan. And so for that, very definitely, I'm quite sure we don't have the capacity to do it right now. I'm not even sure that it's wise to do it. I would prefer to have the manager that you'll see in the 2024 budget come on and then oversee that process. So they can work with the consultant and build out a complete communications, engagement, and marketing plan. And then the secondary part that I've continued to hear in these meetings and in the agenda setting meetings and in the communications meetings was the need for some communication around what we are doing now, or some different form of communication about what we're doing now. And I honestly, I'm not trying to be too sincere. I don't know what we're asking that we can't get from the city. So I am perfectly fine if the board can articulate from me what precisely is that plan is. And I'm happy to do it. And I will try my best to oversee that work, but I honestly don't know what it is we're asking for someone to do. So I keep coming back to like, is it crisis communications? Because I don't know what crisis we have. Is it communications around the IGA? And then we've all agreed that probably it's best that we don't have some negotiate the IGA publicly. So I don't know that that's a need. So I still don't know exactly what the need is right now for a communications person that we can't accomplish with the city. So what the city has told us is they will not do something to articulate the position that's opposite of what the city's is. So that really only is the IGA. But everything else they're willing basically to do. And my assumption is right now we're paying for it. I don't know what clarity will come for us or what end we will have achieved by hiring an additional person to come in and do communications. That's the part that I don't know. But if you're able to tell me what it is, I'm not opposed to doing it. It could be just a failure on my part to see what it is we're asking.
Yeah, no, it sounds different from what you've said before, which I thought I was listening carefully to. So, if you don't want to do an RP for a consultant, that's fine. But what I did hear from the city is that they, will only go so far in helping us, but at some point we need to stand on our own 2 feet and articulate to the community and the public at large what we're doing. And maybe that's still internal folks, handling that communication and whatever, but and that we don't need an independent consultant to help with that. Because in the beginning, I was told we didn't have anything or anybody to help. And so that's why we even established a communications committee, right? To be able to move some of that stuff forward. So
I think Emmy has been here all 3 weeks now. She is assigned to the library. There's stuff that we need. I can certainly float it by her.
no, I mean, I think we've outlined what we have here and we know what that scope is. But I mean, at some point, Sarah said to us that, that we're going to be on our own, that we can't expect that they're going to want to promote our budget hearings and that process or, our position on the IGA. And I just still think that we have a responsibility to the general public as relates to the district to be communicating our message.
I thought you also were saying too, something about more like getting community feedback and something else, through this consultant as well.
Yeah.
Like what kind of, like just field questions and, what kind of feedback or like work groups or.
I don't think so. I don't think we're asking like that person to work independently of us.
No, I it's kind of just.
But like if there's a public hearing or, related to the budget, do we have a communications person to be helping with that outreach and creating marketing materials and making sure there's information out there for the public?
Yeah, I think that's super important. I think our budget hearing this year will probably be more simple, maybe. Because we haven't formed the whole district. I don't know. We won't put on a big piece for the budget. Will be in August or in September, November, whenever we get it, October.
We'll present a draft budget to you.
A draft budget, but
in September, and then we'll be back, and then for your feedback. And then we'll be back in late October or early November for budget approval.
But in terms of outreach to the public, I don't think there's plans to do a huge piece around the budget this year. At least what I've.
right.
And you've heard that from whom?
what I've heard from our conversations from David and from others. Have, you know, around us to do that. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, for me, that to me is the biggest problem. I mean, you know, all we've got is a piece of David and a piece of Jennifer, and hiring somebody means stretching them. Maybe I've been doing budget work too long, but even with the budget, you just cannot imagine we're gonna have a whole lot of interest in this year. In my experience, people engage when there's something imminent that's gonna affect their lives, and that's next year. So when we're able to start executing the budget, I think that's when we need a strategic plan. I think that's the plan that David's moving forward, which is hiring a manager and working with all these wonderful staff. I've been thinking about how to do it all now for so many years.
No, I was glad to hear that there was so much discussion about, you know, each of the, I think almost everyone who spoke talked about the outreach that they want to do and that they have in their head how they want to do it and what kinds of positions they want to fill to do it. And that was all heartening. Those are all things that are already in works to increase. And I think that combined with putting together some kind of third party strategic plan, you know, that we've talked about doing next year, I think would make a huge difference to how, you know, how we're able to do that next year. I don't know that there's a need this year. I mean, I think I'm happy to do some of what we've already been doing, and I think Emmy can work with us. And I think, you know, I think there's some of that we can already be doing to try to do some outreach. If the amount of input we're getting from the community changes, we could change our minds, I think, on that. But I think with the processes we have now, you know, and one of the questions I had for Anita with some of this was, I don't know how much, and I guess this is probably a question for Kim, but I don't know how much we can say publicly about the IGA negotiations.
Well, I would not say anything until we have.
So basically nothing.
You can say we're negotiating, but anything else is dangerous. Legally, we're trying to keep everything in executive sessions. That's why we can't have David. So we don't want to be violating that. To do that, you open the door to getting all kinds of information.
Right, because I mean, I heard one of your concerns was sort of how do we get out the message about, you know, our positions on the IGA, but I think we can't.
Yeah, no, I mean, our positions, but if the city is here and they're saying that, you know, we can't use their communication as it relates to, you know, anything we want to share. We don't, you know, there's so many unknowns. I mean, I don't know. You know, but
I think there will be positive things that do resonate with the community around the budget, right?
Yeah.
So we are reopening Carnegie. We are opening up Novo. We are opening Reynolds 7 days a week. Hours are going to be restored. So a lot of the things that we put in our process. So I think we can touch on each one of those through the newsletter. You could do it in your message. And I honestly, I don't know how the IGA is going to work out either. None of us do really at this point. But I guarantee you there are going to be positives that we can stress. Right? The staff, nobody's ever debated that stuff. The public relates to the library based on the staff and stuff. And my assumption is that we're keeping all the books and all the people are coming back, right? Like all the library staff that we know are going to be with the districts and have a good paying job, still working their same hours. And guess what? All the books and all the stuff are still there. No matter what happens with the buildings, the data, and all the other things that may be controversial, of course, the IGA, there's going to be some positive stuff that we can stress this year. And I think when those are resolved, we can put out a newsletter. The IGA is done. All the staff are staying, and guess what? We still have free books. That's going to be critical, right? And then to the extent that there are controversial things, or things that we cannot resolve completely, or even necessarily to your satisfaction, I don't know. You'll have to tell me. It would not be my intent to stress, but it's not good with the public. Well, it's interested in good news.
So far, the IGA is a snore fest, so I don't think anything's gonna be happening.
So it sounds like this has been done.
I think we can revisit it in a month.
No, I don't think one could visit.
I mean,
I think that's the point. David asked us to bring it up to the board for directions.
Yeah, I'd prefer to have some direction. Otherwise, I need to start looking.
yeah, well, you said you didn't have time. Yeah, so let's not waste time or money. Cool. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other?
I would just ask though, if you're gonna rewrite something that I got, there's something left down. I did. I didn't see anything.
So any subcommittee updates? Trustee matters, we need to have a motion for special meetings for August 1st, August 8th, August 22nd, and 8/29. I don't know.
Could I just say something about 8/29? That is the City of Boulder's like big volunteer appreciation event that evening. And I wondered if it would be actually kind of cool for us to show up because that's part of our, we're sort of representing the library and we're volunteering. So that was just one thought is that week, there's like a giant event at the reservoir. Only that's my comment.
Sounds like fun. I read about it too. I'm just looking to see what we have calendar for that meeting.
Is that event in the evening or in the afternoon? Volunteer event was like.
Yeah, it's an evening event.
Oh, it's in the evening. Oh, that's right. It's like 4 to 7. I'm gonna be out of town, so I can't go.
So at the moment, what we have on the agenda for that night is the draft employee benefits package coming to us.
You can put that the following week if you choose to. That's probably.
I mean, we
would
could go for
prefer-
we could also just go for an hour and meet. I mean, I just wanted to flag it because I would like to attend. And I like hanging out with people from the city. So
It's 4 to 7.
Yeah.
yeah.
We start at 6. I would
Yeah,
prefer
that's a really important agenda item. I don't want to push that.
Yeah, it kind of pushes everything else
Yeah,
back.
yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so,
I move to approve those dates.
okay,
I second.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody online is an aye?
I
All right, Jen. Yeah.
Kim, legal counsel status report.
You have another legal status report. It's mostly things that are pending. I did have a redraft of the IGA based on the comments from the last meeting. And I put a copy of that at your chair. I got here today, just the red line. I left it in red line because there are other changes coming that will be pretty significant. And then I attached to the status report, the draft agreement posed with the county that Benita would talk to the county commissioners about. And Johnny and Benita will be talking with people from the city tomorrow. If you want to take any action on that, you can. I don't think it's probably necessary because there's going to be changes. Both of those are changes.
So who else has seen this?
Nobody.
And in a quick look here, county IGA. And we saw some provisions that were in the previous IGA that we looked at last week. I assume that there won't be duplication once we finally get them straightened out.
Right. Yeah, and the only reason I put those in the county IGA is because the county had asked for those same meetings and the same requests.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that all in one.
We'll take it out. Okay, that is.
And I'm sorry, Kim, did you say you had presented on paper a revised city IGA, but
Yes, and all it is, Sam, I can send you an email with it tomorrow.
Please do.
It's just the red line of the one we looked at last week with your red line comments, the board's red line comments.
Yeah, I apologize. I couldn't be there in person tonight, but I would like to see it. Thanks.
I'll get it to you.
Anything else then?
That's it.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, let's call ourselves adjourned. Thank you all.